In the dimly lit war council room, Aiden stood before his gathered commanders and advisors. A map of known realities and interdimensional thresholds sprawled out before them. The air was thick with anticipation and the weight of impending decisions. Aiden cleared his throat, capturing the attention of everyone in the room. We faced countless battles in this loop, each time gaining knowledge, yet we find ourselves back where we started. I believe it's time to take a more radical approach. Lyriel, her expression serious, leaned forward. What do you propose? I intend to venture into the void, Aiden declared, his voice resolute. It's the space between our reality and others, where the fabric of time and causality thins. I believe it holds the key to understanding and ultimately breaking this loop. A murmur of concern and intrigue swept through the room. Mira, always strategic, was the first to voice her thoughts. That's an unprecedented move. The void is unpredictable, its properties barely understood even by the most learned scholars. Balin, whose knowledge of arcane and interdimensional physics was unmatched, nodded in agreement. Myra's right. However, with the right preparations, I believe we can safeguard Aiden's journey. I've been developing theoretical models that could stabilize a passage through the void. Sir Cedric, ever the pragmatist, chimed in. And what are the risks? This isn't just about unknown territories. It's about potentially unleashing forces we may not be able to control. Aiden met Sir Cedric's gaze firmly. The risk is significant, but the potential to end this cycle, to save countless lives by preventing these repeated conflicts, is worth it. I am not asking anyone here to join me. This is my burden to bear. Lyriel, her concern evident, addressed Aiden directly. And if you are lost in this void, what then? We could be without a leader amidst a crisis. Aiden contemplated her words, then responded, which is why I will ensure that command structures are solidified before I leave. Lyriel, I want you to take charge should I not return. The room fell silent, the gravity of the conversation settling over everyone like a heavy cloak. After a moment, Balin spoke, breaking the silence. If we are to do this, we need to prepare meticulously. I will need access to all our resources, magical, scholarly, and material, to construct a device or spell that can ensure Aiden's safe return. Mira, always focused on logistics, added, I will coordinate with our allies for any additional support. We need to make sure our defenses remain strong in Aiden's absence. Aiden looked around the room, his resolve clear in his eyes. Thank you, all of you. We'll begin preparations immediately. This mission may be the preparations for Aiden's journey into the void took place under the vigilant eyes of Balin and his team of mages and scholars. Inside the War Council tent, which had been transformed into a makeshift laboratory, Balin laid out the complex instruments and arcane artifacts needed for the mission. Aiden, clad in a specially designed armor imbued with protective runes, watched as Balin made the final adjustments. How confident are you in these protections? Balin, focusing intently on a glowing orb, didn't look up as he responded. As confident as one could be with untested theories, Aiden, but I've double-checked every calculation. The theoretical models suggest a high probability of success. Lyriel, who had taken on the role of mission coordinator, approached with a scroll in hand. We've set up contingency plans. Aiden, if communication fails or if you're not back within the planned time, we'll initiate a rescue protocol. Aiden nodded, his expression somber. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. Turning to Mira, he asked, what's the status of our forces while I'm gone? Mira, standing by a table covered with maps and reports, answered, we're at full alert. I've arranged for patrols and guard rotations to be doubled. We won't be caught off guard. Satisfied, Aiden turned his attention back to Balin. I'm ready. Let's proceed. Balin handed Aiden a small, intricate device. This is your lifeline. It will maintain a tether to our reality and guide you back. Keep it with you at all times. Aiden secured the device on his belt, feeling its weight as a reminder of the gravity of his task. The team escorted him to the rift site, a shimmering tear in the fabric of reality, hidden deep within the forest. As they approached, the air grew cooler and the light dimmer. The rift pulsed with a strange energy, its edges warping the space around it. Remember, follow the tether line we've established. It will lead you back to us, Balin instructed, his voice tinged with concern. Aiden took a deep breath and nodded to each of his friends. Thank you, all of you. I'll see you soon. With that, he stepped forward, crossing the threshold into the void. The transition was disorienting. Colors and sounds merged into a whirlwind of sensory overload. Aiden focused on Balin's instructions, using the device to anchor himself. Slowly, the chaos subsided, and he found himself in a vast, empty expanse that defied description. Can you hear me, Aiden? Lyriel's voice crackled through the communication device. Aiden adjusted the device, steadying himself. I'm here, Lyriel. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. Stay focused on the mission. We're monitoring everything from here. Myra's voice came through next. Aiden began to move forward, guided by the tether line. The void seemed endless, a sea of possibilities stretching into infinity. He kept his thoughts clear, focusing on his purpose, to learn the secret behind the time loop and find a way to end it. Aiden pressed deeper into the shifting, surreal landscape of the void. The tether line pulsed softly under his grip, a lifeline back to his own reality. Ahead, the void seemed to pulse with a deeper darkness, a heart of shadows that beckoned him onward. "Are you still with me?" Aiden spoke into the communication device, his voice echoing strangely in the emptiness. Lirel's voice crackled through, tinged with static. "Loud and clear, Aiden. We're tracking your progress. How do you feel?" Disoriented, but determined, Aiden replied, fixing his gaze on the pulsating heart ahead. "I'm approaching what seems to be the center. The energy here is overwhelming." As he moved closer, the void began to react more violently, swirling energies whipping around him like a storm. Balin's voice came through next, urgent and focused. "Aiden, you need to activate the additional protective runes now. The energy fluctuations are off the charts." Without hesitation, Aiden activated the runes Balin had inscribed on his armor. A shield of light formed around him, stabilizing the chaotic energies that battered against him. Taking a deep breath, he stepped into the heart of the void. "What do you see, Aiden?" Myra's voice was tense with anticipation. "It's hard to describe," Aiden answered, his voice awed. "There's a convergence of lines, like the fabric of reality itself is woven together here. I think this is what controls the loop. Can you find a way to alter it?" Balin asked, his tone sharp with concentration. Aiden reached out, touching the nexus of lines. His mind flooded with visions. Past battles, fallen friends, repeated mistakes, all looping back to the beginning. With each vision, a deeper understanding filled him. The loop is tied to a balance, a cycle that's been disrupted. "I need to restore it." "How?" Liral's question was a whisper, almost lost in the static. "By sacrifice," Aiden murmured, understanding dawning on him. "The loop began with a loss, a sacrifice that was never meant to be. I have to offer something of equal value." "What are you planning, Aiden?" Myra's alarm was evident. Aiden looked around, the heart of the void pulsating around him. "I think I need to give up something precious to balance the scales. Something personal." "Aiden, think this through," Mira insisted. "We need you here, with us. There has to be another way." But Aiden knew there wasn't. It's the only way to end the cycle, ensure it never starts again. "I'm ready." He took a deep breath, focusing on the tether line, on his connection to his friends, his world. With a final, resolute breath, he made his choice and released a part of himself into the void. A burst of light, memories, and power flowing from him into the nexus. The void absorbed his offering, and the pulsing slowed, the chaotic energies calming until they were almost serene. Aiden felt a peace he hadn't known in what felt like lifetimes. "Aiden, come back now. Please." Liral's voice was urgent, desperate. Feeling weakened but at peace, Aiden began to follow the tether line back, the path now clear and the void no longer resisting. As he emerged from the rift, back into his world, his friends rushed to his side, their faces etched with concern and relief. "I did it," he whispered, his voice tired but triumphant. The loop should be broken now. As they supported him, helping him back to the camp, the world around them felt subtly different. Stable, real. Aiden had changed the course of their reality, at great personal cost, but with hope for a new, unlooped future. "We'll monitor the changes," Mira said, her voice firm with resolve. "You've given us a chance, Aiden. A real chance." Aiden smiled weakly, watching the stars above shine steadily, no longer flickering with the threat of a reset. "Let's make it count," he murmured, closing his eyes to rest, finally, after what felt like an eternity. Aiden gathered his closest advisors in the dimly lit command tent, his face etched with the weight of recent discoveries. Around him, Liriel, Mira, Balin, and Sir Cedric waited, sensing the importance of the meeting. "Thank you for coming at such short notice," Aiden began, his voice steady despite the undercurrent of tension. "I've learned something about the Creator that changes everything we thought we knew about the loops." Mira leaned in, her strategic mind already turning. "What have you discovered, Aiden?" Aiden took a deep breath before continuing. "The loops aren't a form of punishment or a mere experiment by the Creator. They were a desperate measure, a mechanism to prevent a greater catastrophe." Balin, intrigued, adjusted his spectacles. "What kind of catastrophe are we talking about?" "The very fabric of our reality was at risk," Aiden explained. "The Creator, in his early experiments with the fundamental forces of the universe, caused a fracture, a tear that threatened to unravel everything." Liral's eyes widened. "So the loops, they were a way to hold reality together?" "Exactly," Aiden nodded. "Each loop was essentially a reset, a chance to prevent the fracture from worsening. But it was never a permanent solution, just a delay, hoping for a real fix." Sir Cedric, always concerned with the practical implications, frowned. "So where does that leave us? If we stop the loops without fixing the fracture?" Aiden met his gaze. "Then we risk collapsing reality itself. That's why I've called this meeting. We need a plan to find a real solution, one that addresses the fracture directly." Mira, ever the tactician, began outlining a strategy. "We need more information. If we're to fix this fracture, We must understand the creator's original experiments. Balin, is there anything in the ancient text that might help? Balin nodded thoughtfully. I'll need to consult some of the older arcane libraries. But yes, I believe we can start piecing together the creator's methods. It's risky, delving into such potent magics, but necessary. Lyriel, always ready to act, added, and I'll coordinate with our scouts and spies. If there are physical manifestations of this fracture, we need to find them. Aiden looked around the table, his resolve firming. This is our new mission. Not just fighting the loops, but ending them correctly by repairing what was broken. We all have our parts to play. The group nodded, each person aware of the stakes involved. As they rose to leave, Aiden added, keep this information between us for now. The last thing we need is a panic. We'll proceed carefully and quietly. The preparation for the crucial encounter was intense. In a small, secure chamber within the fortress, Aiden and his team gathered to finalize their approach. Maps and ancient texts lay scattered around, each item a piece of the puzzle they were desperately trying to solve. Balin adjusted his spectacles, looking over a particularly old scroll. According to these texts, the creator initially experimented with the fabric of reality near the Eldritch Fields. It's likely he may still be using that area as his base of operations. Aiden nodded, his expression serious. Then that's where we'll go. But this isn't a battle, not in the traditional sense. We need to understand and reason with the creator, not confront him. Mira, organizing their route on a map, looked up. It's about 3 days' travel on foot through some rough terrain. We should keep our group small to avoid drawing unnecessary attention. Lyriel, always practical, added, I'll arrange for supplies and ensure our communication lines are secure. If anything happens, we need to be able to call for support quickly. Sir Cedric, who had been quiet, finally spoke, his voice firm. I'll accompany you, Aiden. A knight's duty is to protect, and that extends to ensuring you can make your plea safely. Aiden placed a hand on Cedric's shoulder in gratitude. Thank you, Cedric. Your presence will be reassuring. As they continued their preparations, the weight of their task loomed large. Finally, Aiden gathered his gear, his heart heavy yet determined. Let's move out at first light. Rest well tonight. We'll need all our strength for what comes next. The journey to the Eldritch Fields was arduous. The terrain was as unforgiving as the stakes were high. As they neared their destination, the air grew thick, charged with a strange energy that made even the seasoned nights uneasy. Aiden halted the group at the edge of a clearing where the air shimmered unnaturally. This is it. Stay alert, Mira whispered to the group. Keep your eyes open. Anything could happen. Stepping into the clearing, Aiden called out, Creator, we have come to seek your wisdom and understanding. We know of the fractures and the loops. We wish to help repair the damage. The air twisted, and a figure slowly materialized before them. It was the Creator, his appearance neither entirely human or otherworldly. His eyes held millennia of knowledge and a hint of sorrow. Why do you seek me, mortals? His voice was both thunderous and gentle, resonating with the power that pulsed through the clearing. Aiden stepped forward, his posture respectful. We wish to end the suffering caused by the loops. We believe that together we can find a permanent solution. The Creator regarded Aiden for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Your presence here, your desire to help, it speaks of a bravery and a wisdom that I did not expect from mortals. Very well, I will tell you what must be done. Mira quickly took notes as the Creator spoke, his words flowing like a river, detailing the intricate balance of energies and the delicate nature of the reality they inhabited. You must be willing to sacrifice, to give of yourselves in ways you may not have prepared for, the Creator continued, his gaze piercing each of them in turn. Balin, ever the scholar, asked, can these fractures be healed without further harm to the fabric of reality? It is possible, the Creator replied, but the path is fraught with complexity and peril. You will need to gather artifacts, ancient and powerful, and align them in a ritual that spans the ley lines of this world. Aiden, feeling the weight of their new quest, nodded solemnly. We will do whatever it takes. As the meeting concluded, the Creator faded from view, leaving behind a map marked with locations where the artifacts could be found. Aiden and his team looked at each other, their resolve hardened. We have our mission, Aiden declared. Let's begin. After their intense and illuminating discussion with the Creator, Aiden and his team gathered around a makeshift table laden with maps and ancient texts in a tent they had set up near the edge of the Eldritch Fields. The air was thick with the anticipation of the daunting task ahead. Aiden looked at each of his team members, his expression serious yet hopeful. We've been given a monumental task. The artifacts we need to gather are scattered and guarded, each location fraught with its own dangers. But with the knowledge the Creator shared, we have a clear path forward. Mira, always organized and strategic, spread out a detailed map on the table. Here are the locations the Creator marked. The first artifact is in the Ruins of Solitude in the north. It's a crystal known to amplify magical energies. Balin peered at the map, his finger tracing the route. The ruins are cursed, said to drive men mad with visions of their deepest fears. We'll need protections against psychological effects. Lyriel chimed in, her voice steady. I'll prepare the protective amulets. We've dealt with similar enchantments before. I'll make sure we're all shielded. Aiden nodded appreciatively, then turned his attention to Sir Cedric. Cedric, your role will be crucial. We need to ensure our physical safety while we retrieve these artifacts. Your command of the knights will be vital. Sir Cedric, standing tall and resolute, responded with a nod. I will lead our forces personally. We'll provide a secure perimeter at each location while the artifacts are retrieved. Aiden then looked at Mira. Once we have the artifacts, we'll need to perform the ritual the Creator described. Mira, start working on understanding the ley lines and how we can align these artifacts. Mira, already flipping through a heavy tone, nodded without looking up. I'm on it. Balin, I'll need your expertise on the magical configurations. Balin, already deep in another book, grunted in acknowledgement, his mind clearly working through the problem. Aiden's gaze then swept across the group, his expression one of grim determination. This is more than a mission. It's a pact we make, not only with each other but with our world. The fractures we're aiming to repair have caused untold suffering. It's our chance to finally heal them. Lyriel, her eyes reflecting the firelight, added softly, and perhaps find peace for ourselves as well. Aiden stood, gathering the group's focus. We'll set out at dawn tomorrow. Tonight, rest and prepare. Review everything. This mission demands our best. As the meeting adjourned, the team members dispersed to their respective preparations. Aiden remained behind, staring at the maps and the lines that crisscrossed them. Each line, each mark represented a beacon of hope and a potential peril. Later that evening, Aiden stepped outside the tent, looking up at the stars that shimmered brightly in the clear night sky. The weight of their upcoming journey pressed heavily on his shoulders, yet the starlight offered a silent promise of guidance and protection. As he turned back towards the camp, Aiden felt the resolve of his team, their shared commitment to the task ahead. They were ready to traverse dangerous lands, confront ancient magics, and ultimately reweave the fabric of their reality. Returning to his tent, Aiden spent the rest of the night poring over notes, ancient scripts, and magical theories, ensuring that every possible angle was covered, every potential threat anticipated. The night passed slowly, filled with the rustling of pages and the low murmur of his team members also immersed in their studies. In the grand hall adorned with banners representing each allied race, Aiden stood before the gathered leaders and warriors. The room was charged with an anticipatory tension, as eyes of various shapes and colors focused intently on him. Aiden surveyed the room, feeling the weight of his next words. He began, his voice resolute and clear, echoing off the stone walls. Leaders, warriors, allies of our cause, we are gathered here at a pivotal moment. The time has come to direct all our might and unity towards a final assault on the Creator's stronghold. Sir Cedric stepped forward, his armor clanking softly. The human realms stand ready, Aiden. Our knights are prepared to ride into the heart of darkness, with our faith and swords as our shields. Mira, with her keen strategic mind, spoke next. Our intelligence suggests the stronghold's defenses are formidable, layered with both arcane traps and a legion of the Creator's most loyal protectors. We must approach with a plan that leverages all our collective strengths. Balin, gruff as ever, but with a spark of determination in his eyes, added, the dwarven engineers have prepared siege engines and explosive devices capable of breaching their gates. We're ready to shake the very ground they stand on. Lyriel, graceful and composed, indicated the positions on a large map behind her. The elven archers will provide cover fire for the advancing troops. Our arrows will be the first to strike, sowing confusion and chaos among their ranks. Aiden nodded appreciatively at each leader, then continued, this is more than a battle. It is the culmination of all our efforts, the hopes of every person who has suffered under the loops of time. Today, we stand not just as separate peoples, but as one united force. He paused, allowing his words to resonate. We will strike swiftly and decisively. We will utilize the cover of darkness to mask our approach, attacking at dawn when the enemy least expects it. Sir Cedric, your cavalry will flank their eastern defenses. Balin, your siege machines will target the main gates. Mira interjected, focusing on logistics. I will coordinate the movements of our support units to ensure that our front lines are continually supplied. Casualties must be minimized, and retreat paths must be clear. Aiden turned to the assembly, his gaze fierce and inspiring. Tonight, we prepare. Tomorrow, we fight not just for our survival, but for our freedom from this endless cycle. Let this be the dawn of a new era for all our peoples. The room erupted in a resounding cheer, the sound of clashing armor and determined shouts filling the hall as alliances were strengthened and battle plans solidified. Aiden's heart swelled with pride and determination. This was his army, united under a cause worth any sacrifice. As the meeting disbanded, each leader returned to their contingents to relay the plans and prepare for the upcoming battle. Aiden remained behind, staring at the map, mentally preparing for the challenges ahead. He knew the battle would be perilous, possibly the greatest they had ever faced, but he believed in their unity and the strength it brought. The eve before the battle was a hive of focused activity. Within the command tent, Aiden stood over a large table strewn with maps and diagrams. His key lieutenants gathered around. The soft glow of lanterns cast long shadows, adding a somber tone to the serious faces illuminated by the flickering light. "Let's go over this one last time," Aiden started, his finger tracing the path they would take to the Creator's stronghold. "Our success tomorrow depends on precision. Every unit, every individual must know their role." Sir Cedric, clad in the gleaming armor of the Knight Commander, leaned over the map. "My cavalry will take the eastern flank. We've scouted the terrain, and while it's rough, it's passable. We'll use the cover of the low hills to surprise their outposts." Mira, with her ever-present clipboard, nodded. "I've coordinated with the supply units. Medical tents and field hospitals are set up 2 miles behind the front lines. We have quick response teams ready to extract the injured." Balin, his beard bristling with determination, pointed to several spots on the map marked with red flags. "Here, here, and here, my sappers have placed charges. Once we blow these, it'll create chaos in their ranks, disrupt their formations." Lyriel added, "The elven archers will initiate the first wave of attacks. High ground positions have been secured for maximum coverage. Once the enemy is engaged, we'll provide suppressing fire to cover your advances." Aiden surveyed his team, his expression firm yet filled with gratitude. "I know this won't be easy, but I've never been prouder to stand with anyone. Tonight, rest. Tomorrow, we fight not just for ourselves, but for future generations." As they dispersed, Aiden pulled Cedric aside. "Cedric, make sure the men are well fed and rested. Morale will be as crucial as any blade tomorrow." "Understood," Cedric replied, clapping Aiden on the shoulder before leaving to attend to his knights. Aiden then turned to Mira. "Keep the communications lines open. If anything changes, I want to know immediately." "Absolutely, Aiden. We won't miss a beat," Mira assured him, her eyes sharp and alert. Lastly, Aiden spoke with Balin. "Balin, those charges are critical. They're the key to breaking through their defenses. Don't you worry, lad. They'll go off without a hitch," Balin grunted, a slight smile breaking his usually stern demeanor. With everything set, Aiden walked outside, taking a moment for himself under the starlit sky. The quiet of the night was a stark contrast to the turmoil within him. He knew the weight of the dawn to come, the lives it would inevitably cost. He whispered to the night, "Let us be swift and let us be just." His words were a prayer, not to any god, but to the very spirit of humanity and the alliance they had forged. Back inside his private quarters, Aiden readied his gear, his sword, his armor, all imbued with runes of protection and strength. As he strapped on his gauntlet, he allowed himself a moment to think of those he fought for, the faces of his people, their hopes and fears. Lying down, he attempted some rest, knowing full well that sleep might elude him. Tomorrow's battle loomed large, but he was ready to lead, to fight, and, if necessary, to sacrifice. As twilight descended upon the encampment, Aiden and his commanders gathered around a large bonfire that cast a warm glow against the cool night. The camp was abuzz with the nervous energy of warriors preparing for battle, but here by the fire, a temporary calm settled over the group. Aiden stood, his gaze passing over the faces of his trusted leaders and the troops beyond, who looked to him for direction and inspiration. He cleared his throat, and the chatter quieted, all eyes on him. "Tonight, we stand on the threshold of a defining moment," Aiden began, his voice carrying clearly through the crisp air. "Tomorrow, we march into battle, not for glory, not for conquest, but for a chance to right a wrong that has ensnared us all." Sir Cedric, his armor already donned for the morrow, added his voice. "We've trained for this, prepared to the last detail. Remember, the strength of this army lies not just in our arms and armor, but in our unity. We fight together, as one." Mira, always meticulous, chimed in from where she stood near the tactical maps laid out on a nearby table. "Our plans are set, our roles defined. Trust in the preparation, trust in each other. Our coordination will see us through." Balin, who was checking his equipment one last time, grunted affirmatively. And remember, the walls of the stronghold are tough, but not as tough as dwarven steel and determination. We'll breach their defenses and give them a fight they won't soon forget." Lyriel, her bow already strung and ready, spoke softly yet with undeniable resolve. "And from the shadows, we will strike. Archers and scouts, our precision will protect our forces and sow chaos among our foes. We are the unseen storm." Aiden nodded to each of his commanders, proud and grateful for their steadfast courage and loyalty. "Tonight, I ask you to rest, to gather your strength. Reflect on our journey, the battles we've faced, the lessons we've learned. Tomorrow, we apply every ounce of that knowledge, that experience." Turning his gaze to the gathered soldiers who stood watching, their faces illuminated by the flickering flames, Aiden raised his voice. "Look around you, to your left, to your right. These are not just fellow soldiers. They are brothers and sisters in arms. Together, there is nothing we cannot overcome." A cheer rose up from the troops, a sound full of hope and fierce determination. As the cheer died down, Aiden lowered his voice, speaking almost intimately. "I cannot promise that this will be easy, or that we will all return. But I can promise that tomorrow, Our actions will echo through history. We will show the Creator and the world that our spirit, cannot be broken. The group fell silent, each person lost in their thoughts, the weight of the coming day pressing down upon them. After a moment, Aiden concluded, "Now, go. Prepare. Rest. Stand ready. For tomorrow, we fight not just for our future, but for all futures." As the soldiers dispersed, returning to their duties or seeking rest, Aiden remained by the fire, staring into the flames. Sir Cedric approached, placing a reassuring hand on Aiden's shoulder. "We are with you, Aiden, to the end." Aiden looked up, a small smile breaking through the gravity of the moment. "Thank you, Cedric. That means more than you know." As the first light of dawn touched the edges of the battlefield, Aiden stood overlooking the formations of allied troops arrayed before the imposing silhouette of the Creator's stronghold. The air was tense with the anticipation of the imminent conflict, as commanders and soldiers made their final preparations. Aiden's voice cut through the morning chill, reaching the assembled leaders via their communication devices. "This is it. Check your units and confirm when ready." Sir Cedric's response was immediate and clear. "Cavalry units are in position on the eastern ridge. We await your signal to charge." From her vantage point, Mira oversaw the layout of the battlefield. "Artillery is primed. We have a clear line of sight on the enemy's outer defenses, ready to provide covering fire on your command." Balin, surrounded by his team of sappers and engineers, checked the last of his explosive charges. "Explosives are set and ready for detonation. We'll create a breach on your mark." Lyriel, coordinating the archers, reported from the woodland to the west. "Archers are camouflaged and in position. We can start softening their defenses on your command." Aiden, his heart pounding with the gravity of the moment, nodded to himself before keying his communicator. "All units, this is it. On my command. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Execute." Simultaneously, the quiet of the dawn was shattered. Balin's explosives roared to life, tearing open the walls of the stronghold with a series of thunderous blasts. As debris flew and smoke billowed, Myra's artillery began pounding the now exposed defenses, each shell meticulously aimed to maximize chaos and destruction. Sir Cedric shouted over the din, his voice exhilarating. "Cavalry, charge! For freedom!" With the thundering of hooves, the cavalry surged forward, taking advantage of the confusion and disarray among the stronghold's defenders. Lyriel's voice was calm and precise amidst the chaos. "Archers, loose your arrows. Target their marksmen and any rallying forces." The sky darkened briefly as a volley of arrows arced over the battlefield, finding their marks with deadly accuracy. Aiden, drawing his sword and signaling his own unit, led the charge through the breach created by Balin's explosives. "Infantry, with me. Secure the breach and push forward." As they entered the stronghold through the smoldering gap in its defenses, the clash of steel and the cries of battle filled the air. Aiden was at the forefront, parrying an attack from a defender before his own troops followed up with a decisive counterstrike. "Keep pushing," Aiden yelled, driving his forces deeper into the stronghold. "Do not let them regroup." As they fought their way through, Mira continued to direct the artillery, adjusting targets as the battle progressed. "Shift fire to the inner courtyard. Let's keep them off balance." The coordinated assault was relentless. Balin, overseeing another set of charges near a secondary gate, grinned beneath his beard. "Fire in the hole!" Another explosion rocked the stronghold, opening a new front in the assault and drawing cheers from the allied forces. The initial breach had created chaos among the Creator's defenders, with Aiden and his forces capitalizing on the confusion. Inside the smoldering remains of the stronghold's outer wall, Aiden regrouped with Sir Cedric and Balin, their armor coated with the dust and debris of battle. Aiden surveyed the breach, his voice loud and clear over the din of battle. "We've made a significant dent, but we can't let up now. Cedric, your cavalry must keep the pressure on their flanks." Sir Cedric nodded, his face set in a grim line of determination. "Understood, Commander. We'll harry them from the sides, keep them too disoriented to mount a proper defense." Balin, checking his remote detonator, chimed in. "I've got another set of charges ready on the western section. If we blow that, it'll open a secondary route, spread their forces thinner." Aiden clapped Balin on the back. "Do it. The more fronts they have to defend, the better our chances." As Balin hurried off to prepare for the next explosion, Aiden turned to Lyriel via the communicator. "Lyriel, we need your archers to cover Balin's movement. Any sign of enemy archers or mages, take them out." Lyriel's voice was calm and focused as she responded. "Already on it, Aiden. We've got the high ground and clear sight lines. They won't know what hit them." The conversation was cut short by the thunderous boom of Balin's charges going off, successfully opening another gaping hole in the stronghold's defenses. Through the billowing smoke, allied troops poured in, securing the new breach under the cover of relentless arrow fire from Lyriel's archers. Mira, overseeing the broader strategy, updated Aiden on troop movements. "Aiden, I'm rerouting some of the reserve units to support the new breach. We're also seeing some movement behind their lines. Looks like they might be trying to mount a counterattack." Aiden gripped his sword tighter, his mind racing with tactics. "Mira, Make sure those reserves fortify the new position. Cedric, I need your riders to intercept that counterattack before it gains momentum. Yes, Commander. Both responded in unison, each moving to execute their orders with precision. As the battle raged on, Aiden found himself in the thick of the fighting, parrying and striking in equal measure. Around him, the Allied forces pushed forward, emboldened by their commander's clear, effective directions and the visible success of their efforts. In a brief lull, Aiden took stock of the situation. The stronghold's outer defenses were compromised in multiple places, but he knew the real challenge lay ahead. The inner defenses would be tougher, likely brimming with the Creator's most elite protectors. Turning to a nearby lieutenant, Aiden issued a new set of commands. Prepare the men for another push. This next phase will be the hardest. Tell them to brace for heavy resistance. The lieutenant saluted sharply and relayed the orders as Aiden moved to a slightly elevated position to get a better view of the entire battlefield. From here, he could see the waves of his troops advancing, the strategic explosions from Balin's team creating opportunities at every turn. After a series of intense clashes that had allowed Aiden's forces to secure 2 major breaches in the stronghold's defenses, Aiden gathered his commanders for a swift debrief in a makeshift command post just behind the front lines. The air was thick with the smoke of battle and the distant echoes of combat. Status report, Aiden commanded, his gaze sweeping over his commanders, each bearing the marks of the fray. Sir Cedric, wiping the sweat and grime from his brow, was the first to speak. Eastern breach is secured, but we're encountering heavier resistance than anticipated. Their elite guards have mobilized. We need to bolster our forces here. Mira quickly chimed in, her eyes fixed on a tablet displaying real-time troop movements. Reinforcements are en route to the eastern sector. I've also called in aerial support to keep their archers in check. Balin, his hands still covered in soot from setting charges, grunted in approval. Western breach is ours, but it's a mess. We need to shore up our defenses. Those walls won't hold long if they counterattack. I've got teams preparing barricades from the rubble. Aiden nodded, processing the information rapidly. Good work. Lyriel, what's the situation from your vantage point? Lyriel, her voice steady despite the chaos, responded from her position with the archers. We have good coverage of both breaches. My archers are keeping their heads down, but we're running low on arrows. We'll need a resupply soon. Understood. Aiden turned to Mira. Coordinate with logistics. Ensure Lyriel's team and all frontline units have what they need. As Mira relayed orders into her communicator, Aiden addressed the group. This next phase is crucial. We've broken through, but now we must hold these positions. The real battle begins now. Cedric, I want your knights to fortify the eastern breach. Work with Balin's engineers. Make it impregnable. Sir Cedric nodded sharply, turning to leave before Aiden's voice stopped him. And Cedric, keep an eye out for any signs of their commander. If we can take him, it might break their morale. Will do, Commander, Cedric affirmed, striding away to marshal his knights. Aiden then focused on Balin. Balin, after you've secured the western breach, start laying traps. If they counterattack, I want surprises waiting for them. Balin cracked a rare smile. Oh, I've got just the thing in mind. They won't know what hit them. As the commanders dispersed to their respective tasks, Aiden took a moment to survey the battlefield from his elevated position. The smoke of battle hung heavy over the breach walls, through which his soldiers moved like ants in a disturbed anthill, scrambling to fortify and defend their hard-won gains. Turning back to the command post, Aiden was joined by Mira, who had finished coordinating the supply efforts. Artillery is ready to cover our defenses, and medical stations are fully operational. We're as ready as we can be for their counterstrike. Aiden looked out over the field once more, the weight of command resting heavily on his shoulders. This is it, Mira. Hold the line, and this day will be ours. As the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, casting a golden hue across the battlefield, Aiden stood at the command post, surveying the lines of Allied forces preparing for the impending assault. The tension was palpable, each soldier bracing for the battle ahead. Aiden's voice broke the morning stillness, carrying clearly over the comms to his commanders. This is the moment we prepared for. Their second wave will be upon us soon. Stay sharp, stay focused. Sir Cedric, his armor gleaming in the morning light, responded with a robust tone. Knights are ready. Aiden, we'll hold the eastern flank. The cavalry is in position to counter any breaches. From her vantage point, Mira adjusted her binoculars, eyeing the distant movements of the Creator's forces. Visual confirmation on enemy advancements. They're mobilizing their heavy units, looks like enchanted armor and siege beasts. Balin, overseeing his array of explosive devices and traps, grunted affirmatively. Explosives are armed. We'll give them a welcome they won't forget. Just say the word. Lyriel, positioned with her unit of archers, added calmly, archers are at the ready. We have a clear line of sight on their approach paths. We will provide cover fire and disrupt their formations. Aiden took a deep breath, his gaze hardened by the task at hand. All right, everyone, hold your positions until my command. We need to draw them in close. Balin, stand by on those explosives. As the enemy forces began their approach, A thunderous roar filled the air, the ground trembling under the weight of the advancing siege beasts. Aiden raised his hand, signaling his commanders to hold. Sir Cedric's voice came through the comms, tense but controlled. They're within range now, Aiden. Cavalry is itching for a charge. Not yet, Cedric. Hold. Aiden's eyes narrowed as he watched the enemy draw closer, entering the kill zone marked out by Balin's explosives. Now, Balin, detonate. With a series of deafening blasts, the field before the eastern flank erupted in fire and smoke, throwing the enemy's front lines into chaos. Siege beasts stumbled, and ranks of enchanted armor were blasted apart. Archers, loose, Aiden commanded, and Lyrile's archers released a volley of arrows that rained down on the disoriented enemy troops, causing further disarray. As the smoke began to clear, Sir Cedric shouted, "Cavalry, charge! Break their lines while they're scattered." The thunder of hooves filled the air as the knights charged, crashing into the remnants of the enemy's front line with devastating impact. The clash of steel and cries of battle rang out as Aiden's forces pressed their advantage. Mira, monitoring the progression from her position, updated Aiden. Enemy's left flank is faltering under the charge, but more units are moving in from the rear. We need to maintain pressure, Aiden responded, his voice steely with resolve. Push forward. All units, advance. Drive them back. The battle raged under the harsh noon sun, with Aiden and his allies pushing deeper into enemy lines, the stronghold's defenses buckling under their coordinated assault. The air was thick with the dust and smoke of combat, the cries of the fallen echoing over the clash of steel. In the midst of the chaos, Aiden shouted into his communicator, directing his forces with precision. Cedric, how is the eastern flank holding up? Sir Cedric, in the thick of the fray, responded between sword clashes. We're holding, but just barely. They've brought in reinforcements, looks like elite units. We need backup. Aiden turned to Mira, who was coordinating the broader battle strategy. Mira, divert the 2nd Battalion to support Cedric. They can't break through there. Understood, Mira replied, swiftly relaying the orders. Battalion 2, move to the eastern flank. Support the cavalry. As new orders were issued, Balin was setting up a secondary line of explosive traps to slow the enemy's advance. Over the din, he roared, explosives ready. Clear the area. Aiden gave the command. Detonate. Balin. And a moment later, a thunderous explosion rocked the battlefield, creating a new barrier of fire and debris that halted the enemy's momentum. Lyriel, overseeing the archers, provided crucial support from a vantage point. We're providing cover fire for the retreat. Balin's blast has given us a momentary breather. Aiden, pausing to assess the situation, said, good work. Keep them disoriented. Cedric, use this time to regroup your men. Yes, Commander, Cedric acknowledged, rallying his knights for another push. The battle continued with relentless intensity. Aiden moved through the lines, his presence bolstering the morale of his troops. Approaching a unit that was struggling to maintain their position, he called out, hold the line. Remember, we fight for our future. The soldiers responded with a renewed vigor, their shouts rising over the noise of the battle. Aiden then contacted Mira again. What's the status on the northern sector? Mira, her eyes glued to several screens, responded quickly. They're holding, but it's a hard fight. The enemy is using magic users to break our lines. I'm sending in a squad of disruptors to handle them. Make it quick, Mira. We can't afford to lose that sector, Aiden instructed, his tone urgent but composed. As the battle wore on, Aiden's forces slowly gained ground, but every inch was bought with effort and sacrifice. The enemy, though faltering, was relentless, their counterattacks vicious and coordinated. In a brief moment of respite, Aiden met with his commanders for a quick debrief. We've pushed them back, but they're far from beaten. We need to maintain pressure. Balin, are there more explosives we can use? Balin, checking his inventory, nodded. I've got one more set ready to go. Just need to position them for maximum effect. Good. Set them up on the western approach. It could be our best chance to break their main force, Aiden decided, pointing to a map that showed the layout of the battlefield. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and red, the intensity of the battle did not wane. Aiden and his commanders, positioned at a newly established forward command post, watched anxiously as their forces worked to secure their gains against the relentless counterattacks by the Creator's defenders. Report! Aiden barked into the comm, his gaze fixed on the front where his soldiers were fiercely defending the breach walls. Sir Cedric, bloodied but unbowed, responded from the eastern sector. We've managed to hold the line, but it's razor thin here, Aiden. The enemy's heavy units are pushing back hard. We need more firepower on this flank. Mira, coordinating support, quickly replied. Artillery is redirecting to support the eastern flank. Hang tight, Cedric. Help is on the way. Aiden nodded, then turned to Lyriel, whose archers had been crucial in keeping the enemy at bay. Lyriel, what's your status? Lyriel, her voice calm amid the chaos, updated. We're running low on arrows, Aiden. We've been effective, but I'm conserving our remaining resources for critical suppressions only. Balin, overhearing the update, chimed in, I've got a squad setting up for a final push with explosive traps on the western approach. Should shake them up and give us some breathing room. Make it count, Balin, Aiden instructed, then switch back to the broader channel. All units, this is Commander Aiden. We are in the final stretch. Maintain your positions and stay alert. We hold the line at all costs. As Balin's explosives detonated, sending shockwaves through the battlefield, the Allied forces cheered, using the disruption to fortify their positions further. The blast was followed by a coordinated push, as Sir Cedric led a cavalry charge that exploited the temporary confusion among the enemy ranks. Aiden, observing the effect, seized the moment. Push forward. All units, advance. His voice was a clarion call that spurred his troops onward, their morale boosted by the visible signs of enemy disarray. The sun set, casting long shadows across the battlefield, turning the sky blood red. In this grim twilight, the Allied forces solidified their hold on the breached sections of the stronghold. Aiden met again with his commanders as they gathered around a makeshift table, maps and reports scattered before them. We've managed to hold our ground, Aiden began, assessing the weary but determined faces of his leaders. Tonight, we reinforce our positions. Tomorrow, we plan our final assault. This is far from over, but I believe the Creator's stronghold is within our grasp. Mira, ever the strategist, pointed out, we need to ensure we have enough reserves for tomorrow's operations. I'll coordinate with logistics to bring up additional supplies and reinforcements overnight. Sir Cedric, still in his battle-worn armor, added, my knights will stand guard through the night. We won't let them retake what we fought so hard to gain. Lyriel nodded, adding her perspective. I'll have scouts monitor enemy movements. Any sign of a counterattack, and we'll be ready. As the meeting concluded, Aiden looked over his assembled commanders, his expression one of grim satisfaction mixed with resolve. Rest while you can. Tomorrow, we end this. For our people, for our freedom, for our future. The commanders dispersed to carry out their respective duties, leaving Aiden alone at the command post. He gazed out over the battlefield, the fires and smoldering ruins painting a stark picture of the day's brutalities. Yet, amidst the destruction, there was hope, a chance to finally achieve peace and stability. The early morning air was brisk as Aiden stood among his commanders, gathered around a worn table laden with maps and strategic plans under the gray dawn sky. Each face showed the marks of the previous day's battles, but their eyes burned with resolve. Aiden scanned the group, his voice firm yet infused with motivational fervor. We've pushed hard to hold our ground, but now we need to shift our strategy. Today, we strike at the heart. We're going for a direct assault on their lines. Sir Cedric, his armor still etched with the scars of recent combat, nodded seriously. It's a bold move, Aiden. The knights are ready to lead the charge. We'll break through their center and split their forces in two. Mira, always precise, adjusted her glasses before speaking up. Before the cavalry moves in, I suggest a heavy bombardment on their front lines. Soften them up. Our artillery has a good line of sight and can make a significant impact. Balin, with a look of intense concentration, added, I've set up several charges along their defensive perimeter. Timed right, they can create chaos right when Cedric's cavalry hits. It'll magnify the shock effect. Lyriel, standing slightly apart with her bow in hand, chimed in smoothly. The archers will provide cover. As soon as the first explosion clears, we'll rain arrows down on them. That should give our troops enough cover to advance. Aiden considered each suggestion, his gaze lingering on the map, tracing potential routes of attack with his finger. Excellent. Let's synchronize our watches. We'll start the artillery barrage at 060. Balin, I want your charges to go off at 0602. Cedric, your cavalry charges at 0605. We need to be precise and overwhelming. Cedric pounded his fist lightly on the table in agreement. Understood. Commander, we'll be ready. Mira was already tapping away at her device, coordinating with other units. I'm relaying the timings now. All units will be synchronized to your go. Balin grinned, his usual gruff demeanor lightening slightly. This is going to be one for the history books. Let's make sure it's a tale of victory. Aiden stood, his presence commanding attention as he looked each of his commanders in the eye. This is more than just a battle. It's our chance to end this conflict with a decisive strike. Our courage and resolve today will determine our future. Let's be the storm they never saw coming. As the meeting broke, each commander returned to their respective divisions to prepare for the assault. The air was thick with the tension of impending battle, but also with a palpable sense of unity and purpose. As the dawn's light spilled over the battlefield, casting long shadows and illuminating the prepared lines of soldiers, Aiden stood ready, his hand poised over the device that would signal the start of the barrage. The air was tense, charged with the energy of impending conflict. Artillery, are you ready? Aiden's voice crackled over the comms, clear and commanding. Mira responded from her position with the artillery units, her voice steady. Artillery is primed and on your mark, Commander. Balin, ready at his post with the explosives, added, charges set and ready for a spectacular show, Aiden. Aiden took a deep breath, looking out across the field where Sir Cedric and his cavalry waited, a line of tense anticipation. On my mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Execute. The morning erupted into chaos as Myris artillery unleashed a deafening roar, shells arcing through the sky to rain down on the enemy's front lines. Almost simultaneously, Balin's charges exploded in a series of ground-shaking booms, tearing through the enemy's defenses and sending debris flying. Now, Cedric, charge, Aiden shouted, his voice a beacon over the tumult. Sir Cedric spurred his horse forward, leading a thunderous cavalry charge. The ground trembled under the hooves of the charging steeds as they raced towards the gaps created by Balin's explosions. For victory! Cedric roared, his sword raised high. As the cavalry breached the enemy line, Aiden followed closely behind with the infantry. Push forward, secure the breach, he ordered, cutting down an enemy defender with a swift stroke of his sword. The battle intensified as Aiden's forces poured through the openings in the enemy's lines. Liral's archers provided critical support from the rear, their arrows finding marks among enemy mages and archers trying to regroup. Lirial, keep those arrows coming. We need to keep them disorganized. Aiden called out, dodging a counterattack from an enemy soldier. Covering you. Aiden, don't let up. Lirial responded, her voice calm amidst the storm of arrows and screams. As the allied forces gained ground, Mira coordinated the movement of reserves to bolster the advance. Sending in the second wave of infantry now, Aiden. We're maintaining pressure. Good, keep pushing. Every inch we take is one less they have to fight back. Aiden encouraged, rallying his troops as they advanced deeper into enemy territory. The enemy, though initially caught off guard, began to mount a more organized resistance, rallying around their remaining commanders. The sound of battle was relentless, a cacophony of metal, magic, and mayhem. Amidst the fray, Aiden spotted an enemy commander rallying troops for a countercharge. Quickly assessing the situation, he called out to Sir Cedric, who was nearby, dealing with enemy reinforcements. Cedric, target that commander. Break their leadership. On it, Aiden. Cedric acknowledged, directing a few of his best riders to flank the enemy commander, successfully cutting him down and causing disarray in the enemy ranks. As the sun climbed higher, casting no relief on the heated battle, Aiden and his forces continued to press forward, their initial success giving them a fragile but important foothold within the enemy's defenses. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the battlefield as Aiden and his commanders regrouped briefly behind a hastily erected barricade. Their faces were streaked with sweat and grime, the intensity of the day's fighting evident in their weary but determined expressions. Aiden, catching his breath, surveyed the group. We've made significant headway, but the stronghold's core defenses are still ahead. We need to keep the pressure up. This is where they'll be making their stand. Sir Cedric, checking the readiness of his troops, nodded in agreement. My knights are prepared for another push, Aiden. We can lead the charge, break through their central defenses. Mira, her eyes glued to a digital map displaying troop movements and enemy positions, chimed in. I've got reserves lined up to support the charge. We can flood the breach with infantry as soon as Cedric's men open a path. Balin, prepping another set of explosive charges, grunted affirmatively. I'll set these charges to blow right before the cavalry hits. It'll soften them up, maybe even take out some of their heavy artillery. Lirial, her quiver nearly depleted, looked over to Aiden. We're low on arrows, but I'll make every shot count. My archers can provide suppressing fire from the east ridge. It's got a clear view of their rear guard. Aiden processed the updates, formulating the next phase of their strategy on the fly. All right, here's the plan. Cedric, you and your knights will initiate the assault. Balin, time your charges to maximize the impact of the cavalry charge. Mira, as soon as the breach is cleared, send in the reserves. Sir Cedric saluted crisply. Understood. Commander, we won't let you down. Balin checked his remote detonator, a wicked gleam in his eye. Just give me the word, and I'll light up the whole area like the 4th of July. Mira relayed final instructions to the reserve units, her voice calm and authoritative. Units stand by. Wait for my signal. Then move quickly and decisively. Aiden turned to Lirial. Make sure your archers are ready. As soon as we engage, I need them to disrupt any counter moves from the enemy. Lirial nodded, her gaze steady. They'll be ready, Aiden. We'll cover your advance. With the plan set, Aiden looked around at his commanders, their faces a mix of fatigue and fierceness. This is it. We break them here. Today. For all we've lost, for all we've suffered, we end this now. The group broke from the huddle, moving to their respective positions. As the commanders departed, Aiden took a moment to steady himself. He looked out across the battlefield, where the setting sun bathed the land in blood-red light, mirroring the day's carnage. With a deep breath, he keyed his communicator. All units, this is Commander Aiden. Commence the final assault. Execute Plan Delta. Let's finish this. The battlefield erupted anew as Cedric's knights, with a thunderous roar, charged forward, directly into the heart of the enemy's defenses. Seconds later, Balin's charges exploded, sending shockwaves through the enemy lines just as the cavalry smashed into them. Myra's reserves poured into the breach, overwhelming the stunned defenders with sheer numbers and ferocity. From her vantage point, Lyriel directed her archers, their arrows finding marks among enemy commanders and mages trying to organize a defense. The pre-dawn hours cloaked the allied camp in shadows as Aiden and his commanders huddled around a dimly lit tactical map. The air was tense, filled with the urgency of their final preparations. Aiden's voice cut sharply through the quiet. This is where we break them. The walls of the Creator's stronghold have never been breached. But today, we change history. Balin, your explosives are key. Are we ready? Balin nodded, his face grim yet determined. Charges are set at critical points along the wall. We'll blow a gap wide enough for Cedric's cavalry to storm through. Sir Cedric, his armor clinking softly as he leaned over the map, added, my knights are mounted and waiting. We'll charge at first light, the moment the breach is made. We'll pour through and hold the gap until the infantry can follow up. Mira, ever the strategist, pointed at several locations on the map. Artillery units are positioned to cover the breach from these points. We'll lay down a suppressing barrage that should keep their heads down while we move in. Lyriel, quiet but focused, chimed in. My archers are ready to provide covering fire. We'll target any defenders trying to seal the breach. Aiden surveyed his leaders, his expression set in a mask of command. Everything hinges on this first move. Once we breach the wall, there's no turning back. We'll be in the heart of their defenses, and it'll be a fight every step from there. He paused, letting his gaze linger on each of his commanders. We have one shot at this. Let's make sure it counts. Explosives will detonate on my signal, Aiden continued, checking his watch. Balin, you're up. Mira, prepare the artillery. Cedric, get your men ready. Lyriel, position your archers. We strike as soon as the wall comes down. Each commander nodded, a silent acknowledgement of the weight of the moment. They dispersed to their units, each step purposeful, each action calculated. Aiden took a deep breath and spoke into his communicator. All units, this is it. Stand by for my signal. Today, we bring down the Creator's stronghold. For freedom, for our fallen, for our future. The air was thick with anticipation. Aiden watched as the first light of dawn began to seep over the horizon, the battlefield quiet but for the distant hum of readiness. He raised his hand, ready to give the signal. His voice was steady, resolute. Now, Balin, detonate. A tremendous explosion shattered the morning silence, a roaring sound that sent shockwaves through the air. Massive plumes of smoke and debris billowed as parts of the formidable wall crumbled and fell, creating a gaping breach. Go! 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 Aiden shouted, his voice carrying across the battlefield. Sir Cedric and his knights thundered forward, the ground shaking beneath the charge of their steeds as they raced towards the smoking breach. Artillery boomed in the background, shells arching over the battlefield to explode among the enemy positions, creating chaos within the stronghold as defenders scrambled to respond. Lyriel's archers released volley after volley, their arrows darkening the sky briefly before finding marks among the defenders attempting to regroup. Aiden drew his sword, his eyes fixed on the breach. Forwards, he commanded, leading his infantry into the smoke-filled gap, into the heart of the enemy stronghold. The dust had barely settled from the explosions when Aiden and his forces surged through the smoky breach in the walls of the Creator's stronghold. Inside, they were met with fierce resistance from the stronghold's defenders, who rallied quickly to defend their ground. Aiden, in the thick of the battle, shouted commands over the clash of steel and the cries of warriors. Push forward. Secure this breach. We can't let them regroup. Sir Cedric, leading a squadron of knights, responded from the front line, his voice thundering above the din. We're on it, Commander. The knights are holding the line. Mira, observing from a slight elevation, relayed crucial information through her communicator. Aiden, enemy reinforcements are heading towards the breach from the north side. I'm redirecting some of our forces to intercept them. Aiden acknowledged with a quick nod. Good, keep them off our backs. Balin, where are those barricades? Balin, working alongside his team near the breach, called back. Setting them up now. We'll have this area fortified in minutes. As they spoke, Lyriel's archers provided cover from above, their arrows finding marks among the approaching enemy reinforcements. Lyriel's calm voice came through the chaos. Archers are keeping them pinned down, Aiden. We'll give you all the cover we need. With the breach partially secured, Aiden turned his attention to consolidating their position. Cedric, take your men and fortify the left flank of the breach. We can't afford any surprises. Understood. Commander, Cedric called out, directing his knights to the vulnerable areas, their shields and swords forming a formidable barrier. Meanwhile, Mira continued to coordinate the broader battle strategy, her eyes constantly scanning the field. Artillery, adjust fire to Sector 7. We need to keep their heavy units at bay. As the artillery boomed in response, shaking the ground with its fury, Aiden caught sight of enemy commanders rallying their troops for a counterattack. He quickly grabbed his radio. Balin, do we have any charges left for a surprise? Just a few left, Aiden. But they're good ones, Balin replied, a grim smile in his voice. Setting them up for a nice welcome. Seconds later, a series of controlled explosions rocked the enemy formation, throwing their counterattack into disarray. Aiden seized the moment. Advance. Push them back while they're scattered. His forces surged forward, driving deep into the stronghold. Each step forward was contested fiercely by the defenders, but the momentum was with Aiden and his allies. The stronghold's inner defenses loomed ahead, the key to the Creator's command center and the final objective. As they secured more ground, Aiden rallied his troops, his voice carrying clearly, "We've broken through their walls, but the battle is not over yet. Hold your ground. Secure this area. We make our stand here." With the breach secured and their position within the stronghold fortified, Aiden convened a quick meeting with his commanders amidst the rubble and chaos of their newly captured territory. The sounds of distant fighting and the occasional rumble of explosions provided a grim backdrop to their strategy session. Aiden looked around at the faces of his commanders, each marked by the fatigue and adrenaline of the fight. "We're inside, but this isn't over yet. The command center is our target. It's heavily fortified, likely where we'll find the Creator. We need a plan to breach it effectively." Sir Cedric, cleaning his sword, responded first. "My knights can lead a frontal assault. We'll draw their main forces out, create an opening for an infiltration team." Mira, with her tablet displaying live satellite images, pointed to a section of the map. "There's a secondary entrance here, less guarded but still secure. If Balin can blow a path to it, it could be our best entry point." Balin nodded, examining his remaining explosives. "I've got enough charges left for a small surprise. Give me a team and we'll open up that entrance." Lyriel, checking her arrows, added, "My archers can provide cover from the rooftops. Keep their heads down while you move in." Aiden processed the information, formulating a plan. "All right, Cedric, you and your knights create a diversion at the main gate. Balin, you're with me. We'll take the secondary entrance with a strike team. Mira, coordinate our movements from here. Lyriel, I need your archers in position to cover both teams." Each commander acknowledged their orders, quickly moving to prepare their units. Aiden then turned to the small team that would accompany him and Balin. "This is a precision strike. We go in fast, secure the command center, and find the Creator. No heroics. Stick to the plan, and watch each other's backs." As they readied themselves, Balin approached Aiden, a serious look on his face. "Aiden, once we're in, what's the play?" "Confrontation." Aiden looked back at the stronghold, the setting sun casting long shadows over its imposing structure. "We confront him. We need to understand why this has happened and ensure it ends." Today, with the teams in place, Sir Cedric's knights began their loud, distracting assault on the main gate, clashing violently with the stronghold's defenders. As the enemy's attention was drawn to the front, Aiden, Balin, and their team made their move towards the secondary entrance. Explosions from Balin's charges cleared their path, and they quickly moved through the smoke and debris into the heart of the stronghold. Inside, the corridors were dimly lit and eerily quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos of the front gates. As they navigated the labyrinthine passageways, Myra's voice came through their earpieces, guiding them with updates on enemy movements. "You've got a patrol coming up on your right. Redirect left at the next junction." Following her directions, they reached the command center without encountering significant resistance, thanks to the distraction at the front and precise guidance. The door was reinforced, but another of Balin's charges took care of that, and they burst into the command center. The air was thick with tension as Aiden and his strike team approached the heavy door leading to the inner sanctum of the Creator's stronghold. The path was fraught with danger, evidenced by the intricate traps that lay before them. "Everyone, stay sharp," Aiden commanded, his eyes scanning the corridor lined with ornate tiles that smelled of peril. "These tiles are likely pressure activated. Balin, you're up." Balin stepped forward, kneeling to examine the mechanism closely. "Ingenious design," he muttered, probing the tiles with a tool from his belt. "Each tile is weighted to trigger separately. Step wrong, and it's all over." "How do we proceed?" Aiden asked, watching Balin work. "One moment," Balin responded, his focus intense. After a brief, tense pause, he clicked his tongue in satisfaction. "Got it. Follow my steps exactly. Step where I step, and no deviations." Carefully, he demonstrated a safe path through the tiles. As they navigated through the trap, Lyriel remarked, "Whoever built this didn't want visitors." Once past the tiles, they faced their next challenge, a large door with an ancient locking mechanism. "Mira, anything on this?" Aiden asked, eyeing the complex lock. Mira approached, her scanner in hand. "It's old, very old. Some kind of mechanical puzzle." "Lyriel, your expertise in ancient languages might come in handy here." Lyriel joined Mira, examining the symbols engraved around the lock. "These are protective wards, but they're also part of the puzzle. It's a riddle, encoded in the language of the old mages." "Can you solve it?" Aiden asked, watching the corridor behind them warily. "Give me a few minutes," Lyriel replied, her fingers tracing the symbols as she muttered under her breath, deciphering the ancient script. While Lyriel worked, Aiden stayed alert, his hand resting on his sword hilt. Everyone, keep your eyes peeled. We're sitting ducks if any of the Creator's guards stumble upon us. Minutes passed in tense silence, broken only by the soft clicks of Liriel's manipulations on the lock mechanism. Finally, with a soft thud, the door unlocked. "We're in," Liriel announced, stepping back as the door swung open with a heavy groan. "Good work," Aiden said, leading the team through the newly opened passage. The corridor beyond was dimly lit, the air stale, hinting at long disuse. As they moved forward, the sound of mechanical whirring grew louder, a clear sign of active traps ahead. "More traps. Everyone, stay alert," Aiden warned as they encountered a series of swinging blades that crisscrossed the hallway. Balin stepped up again, observing the rhythm of the blades. "Timing is everything. Watch the pattern, and move when I say." He counted under his breath, then dashed through safely, signaling the others when to follow. One by one, they made it past the blades, only to face yet another challenge. A hallway lined with statues, each poised to shoot projectiles. "Arrow traps," Aiden noted, eyeing the statues warily. Balin examined the nearest statue. "Pressure plates on the floor again. I can disable them, but it'll take time." "No time," Aiden decided quickly. "We'll use the statue's firing pattern to our advantage. Move only when they reload." Carefully timing their movements with the statue's firing sequence, the team advanced through the gauntlet, each step a test of their nerve and agility. Reaching the end of the corridor, Aiden allowed himself a brief sigh of relief. "Well done, everyone. Let's keep moving. The inner sanctum is close." Navigating the twisting, turning corridors of the inner sanctum, Aiden and his team encountered a labyrinth designed not just to confuse but to trap intruders forever. With each turn, the complexity of the maze increased, and the danger grew. "This is no ordinary maze," Aiden remarked, pausing at yet another confusing intersection. "It's a labyrinth with magical enhancements designed to disorient and divide us." Sir Cedric, his hand resting on his sword, looked around cautiously. "Every turn feels like a trap. How do we find our way without getting lost or worse?" Mira, consulting her digital map, tried to make sense of the layout. "The architecture here is designed to shift. See these markings? They suggest that the walls themselves may move." Liriel, who had been examining the symbols and scripts carved into the walls, nodded in agreement. "And these inscriptions tell of a safeguard, a way to stabilize the maze, but it requires activating specific runes in the correct sequence." Aiden considered this. "Can you identify these runes, Liriel?" "I can try, but it will take time we might not have," Liriel responded, her fingers tracing the intricate carvings. Balin, impatient, chimed in. "While Liriel works, I can scout ahead a bit, see if there's a physical pattern to this madness." "Be careful, Balin," Aiden warned. "We can't afford any missteps." As Balin cautiously moved ahead, Aiden turned to Mira. "Keep trying to map our progress. Any reference point could help us if we need to retreat quickly." Mira nodded, her eyes flicking between her device and the surrounding corridors. "There's an anomaly here," she noted after a moment. "The central chamber. It's heavily shielded, but I think it's the heart of the labyrinth." Meanwhile, Liriel had begun to chant softly, her voice weaving between the grooves of ancient runes. Slowly, a faint glow emanated from the walls, the light growing steadier with each passing second. Suddenly, Balin's voice crackled over their earpieces. "Found something." A series of levers hidden in a side passage. "They might control the maze's configurations." "Wait for my signal before you touch anything," Aiden instructed, making his way to Balin's location. Together, they examined the levers. These correspond to the inscriptions Liriel's been working on, Aiden realized. "Liriel, which runes should we activate?" From her position, Liriel responded, her tone focused. "Activate the third lever first, then the first, and finally the fifth. That should align the runes to stabilize the path to the central chamber." Following her instructions, Balin carefully manipulated the levers. With each pull, a rumbling sound echoed through the labyrinth, and the walls shuddered slightly, as if settling into a new configuration. "Path should be stable now," Liriel said, joining the others. "We need to move quickly, though. The magic won't hold indefinitely." With a clearer path forward, Aiden led his team deeper into the labyrinth. The corridors no longer shifted around them, and they made swift progress toward the central chamber Mira had identified. As they approached, the air grew colder, the oppressive weight of ancient magic pressing down on them. Aiden felt a chill run down his spine. "Stay alert. Whatever we find in the central chamber, it will be welcoming." They reached the heavily fortified door of the central chamber, its surface etched with more runes and symbols of warding and protection. "This is it," Aiden said, drawing his sword. "Ready yourselves. Whatever lies beyond this door, we face it together." The door to the inner sanctum stood ominously before Aiden and his team, its heavy, rune-covered surface a final barrier to their quest. The air hummed with a palpable tension, the silence punctuated only by the distant echoes of the labyrinth settling behind them. Aiden placed his hand on the door, feeling the cold energy seeping from the runes. He turned to Liriel. "Can you decipher these runes?" We need to get through without triggering any defensive spells. Lyriel stepped forward, her eyes scanning the intricate script. These are complex. They're not just protective, they're offensive too. Give me a moment to neutralize them. Her fingers moved with practiced precision, muttering incantations under her breath. Balin, impatient as ever, looked over to Aiden. Once we're in, what's the plan? We may not have much time before the Creator realizes we've breached his sanctum. Aiden drew his sword, preparing for what was to come. We confront him directly. We need answers, and we end this threat. Everyone, be ready for anything. Sir Cedric adjusted his helmet, gripping his sword tightly. We'll follow your lead, Aiden. Just say the word. As Lyriel's chant crescendoed, the runes on the door began to dim, one by one, until the door clicked, unlocking silently. She stepped back, nodding to Aiden. It's safe now. Aiden pushed the door open, and the team stepped into the inner sanctum. The chamber was vast, filled with strange machinery and arcane instruments that pulsed with magical energy. At the far end, they saw a figure standing by a large console, the Creator. Mira, ever vigilant, whispered into her communicator, updating those outside. We've entered the sanctum. Eyes open, everyone. The Creator turned, his gaze piercing as he regarded Aiden and his team. So, you come. Why do you disturb my work? Do you not see the necessity of what I do? Aiden approached slowly, his voice steady. Your necessity has caused suffering and chaos. It ends now. Shut it down, or we shut it down for you. The Creator's expression was a mix of disdain and pity. You think you can simply stop what I've begun? You do not even comprehend the scope of what is at stake. Balin snorted. We know enough, and we've seen enough. Your experiments are over. As the tension escalated, Lyriel quietly positioned herself, her eyes scanning for any hidden threats within the room. Meanwhile, Sir Cedric and the others fanned out, securing the perimeter of the sanctum. The Creator sighed, a gesture of resignation or perhaps calculation. Very well. If you wish to end this, you will have to deactivate the core yourself. But know this, the consequences are on your heads. Mira, looking around at the complex machinery, asked, Can you guide us? How do we deactivate it safely? The Creator gestured towards the console. There. But once you do, there is no going back. Aiden nodded to Mira, who began to work on the console, her fingers flying over the controls as she deciphered the Creator's instructions. Everyone else, stay alert. We don't know what might happen once this shuts down. The room filled with a growing hum as Mira worked, the machinery's lights flickering in response to her actions. After a tense few minutes, she looked back at Aiden, ready to shut it down on your command. Aiden took a deep breath, his eyes locked on the Creator, who watched impassively. Do it. Mira, end this now. With a final keystroke, Mira initiated the shutdown sequence. The machinery groaned, the hum crescendoing into a deafening roar before suddenly going silent. The room plunged into semi-darkness, the only light now coming from the emergency systems. As the reality of what they had done began to settle, Aiden turned to his team, a somber victory etched on his face. It's done. Let's secure the area and prepare to move out. We need to ensure this can never be started up again. The low hum of deactivated machines filled the vast inner sanctum as Aiden faced the Creator, the air thick with tension. Only the soft echo of their movements disturbed the silence. You think you've stopped me? The Creator began, his voice echoing off the cold stone walls. Your actions have only delayed the inevitable, Aiden. You cannot halt progress, no matter how noble your intentions. Aiden tightened his grip on his sword, his stance firm. Your progress has brought nothing but chaos and suffering. It ends now. The Creator smirked, slowly pulling a small, intricately designed device from his robe. You are a fool if you think it ends with stopping me. But if a demonstration is what you require, then witness the power you seek to destroy. Mira, standing just behind Aiden, her eyes fixed on the device, whispered urgently, Aiden, be careful. We don't know what that is capable of. Ignoring her, the Creator activated the device, which began to glow ominously. Let me show you what true power is. Sir Cedric instinctively stepped forward, his hand on his sword, but Aiden raised a hand to halt him. Stay back. This is my fight. As the device emitted a pulsating light, the Creator pointed it towards Aiden, unleashing a stream of energy. Aiden reacted swiftly, diving to the side as the ground where he had stood moments ago scorched and cracked under the force of the energy. Is that all you have? Aiden taunted, rolling to his feet and charging towards the Creator. The Creator, unshaken, directed another blast towards Aiden, who deflected it with his sword, sparks flying from the contact. You'll have to do better than that. The duel escalated, with Aiden weaving through a deadly dance of dodges and strikes, closing the distance between them. Each clash of their swords rang out like thunder, a deadly melody played in the heart of the sanctum. Lyriel, watching anxiously from a safe distance, called out, Aiden, the device. It's the source of his power. Hearing her, Aiden focused his next attacks on the Creator's hand, attempting to knock the device away. The Creator parried with skilled precision, his own blade a blur of motion. As they fought, Balin yelled from his position, Aiden, watch out. The device seems to be charging up for something big. The creator, seizing the moment of Aiden's brief distraction, thrust the device forward, unleashing a massive wave of energy. Aiden barely managed to raise his sword in time, the energy enveloping him, his armor smoking under the assault. Struggling against the overwhelming power, Aiden shouted, his voice filled with resolve. It's not enough to stop me. With a Herculean effort, Aiden pushed forward, driving the creator back step by step. The creator stumbled, the device in his hand flickering erratically, its energy seemingly unstable. Your toy is failing you. Aiden pressed on, his blade aimed at disarming the creator. As the device sputtered, the creator's eyes widened in realization. No, this cannot be. With a final, determined effort, Aiden swung his sword, striking the device directly. It exploded in a burst of light and energy, knocking both combatants backward. As the remnants of the destroyed device smoked on the cold floor of the sanctum, Aiden and the creator regained their footing, eyes locked in a fierce standoff. The initial exchange had been explosive, but Aiden knew the real fight was just beginning. The creator, clutching his side where the device had exploded, sneered at Aiden. Impressive, but futile. You cannot comprehend the forces you are meddling with. Aiden steadied his breathing, readying his stance. Then enlighten me, before you're no longer able. Sir Cedric called out from his position, his voice filled with concern. Aiden, remember, it's not just about defeating him physically. We need to understand his motives. Ignoring Cedric, the creator drew a hidden blade from his robe, its edge gleaming with a strange, ethereal light. If it's enlightenment you want, then witness the depths of my resolve. The creator lunged forward, initiating a rapid series of attacks that Aiden parried barely in time. The clanging of their blades reverberated through the sanctum, a deadly dance that pushed Aiden to his limits. Mira, watching intently, noted to Lyriel, Aiden's holding his own. But that blade, it's unlike anything we've seen. It must be enchanted. Lyriel, her eyes narrowed in focus, responded, yes, and it's drawing power from the sanctum itself. See the glyphs on the floor? They're channeling energy to his weapon. Aiden, hearing snippets of their conversation, realized he needed a new strategy. Lyriel, can you disrupt the glyphs? Cut off his power source. Lyriel nodded, moving to a safer vantage point. She began chanting, her hands weaving complex sigils in the air, aiming to disrupt the magical flow. As she worked her magic, the creator's attacks began to falter, the light of his blade dimming slightly. Sensing his weakening, Aiden pressed forward, driving the creator back step by step. Your tricks are running out, Aiden taunted, feeling the tide turning in his favor. The creator, frustration evident on his face, growled, you think you've won? I am not so easily defeated. With a desperate flurry, he aimed a particularly vicious strike at Aiden, which Aiden dodged at the last second. The miss left the creator exposed, and Aiden didn't hesitate. With a swift, powerful motion, he disarmed the creator, sending the enchanted blade clattering across the stone floor. Now, Aiden said, pointing his own sword at the creator's throat, it's over. Balin, who had been silently preparing another one of his devices, now approached cautiously. We should secure him, Aiden. And that blade, it needs to be contained. Aiden nodded, signaling for Sir Cedric and another knight to bind the creator. As they did, Mira approached, her device scanning the blade. This weapon is dangerous. We'll need to study it, understand its properties. The creator, now bound and defeated, looked up at Aiden with a mix of defiance and resignation. You may have stopped me, but you cannot stop what is coming. My work was only a part of something much greater. Aiden, considering the creator's words, sheathed his sword. Then we will be ready. We will always be ready. As the team secured the sanctum, ensuring no further threats remained, Aiden turned to his commanders. Let's move out. We need to regroup and prepare for what's next. This battle is won, but the war, it continues. The inner sanctum's air was thick with the aftermath of the confrontation as Aiden stood over the subdued creator, his team surrounding them in a tight circle. The dim lighting cast long shadows, making the room seem even more ominous. You've lost. It's over, Aiden said firmly to the creator, who was now slumped against the wall, his energy seemingly drained. The creator looked up, a smirk twisting his lips despite his defeat. Is it, Aiden? You think defeating me changes anything? There are forces at play here far beyond your understanding. Mira stepped forward, her device in hand, still scanning the room for any hidden dangers. Maybe so, but we've stopped you. That's what matters now. We'll deal with whatever comes next. Sir Cedric, who had been quietly surveying the room, turned to Aiden. He's right about one thing, though. We need to be vigilant. There's no telling what else he set in motion. Aiden nodded, then turned back to the creator. What did you unleash? Tell us, now. Maybe we can still prevent it. The creator coughed, his body weakened. The forces have awakened. They won't stop with my defeat. They can't be bargained with or defeated by conventional means. Lyriel, her eyes narrowed, interjected. He's stalling, Aiden. We need to get him secured and out of here. We can figure out the rest later. Balin, ever practical, began to secure the creator with heavy-duty restraints. Right, let's not take any chances. He's coming with us. Aiden helped Balin, then addressed the creator again. You're going to help us stop what you've started. It's your chance to make things right. The creator laughed, a hollow sound that echoed off the sanctum walls. Naive until the end, aren't you? You can't undo what's been done. But yes, I will come with you. Not much choice now, is there? With the creator secured, Aiden gave the signal to move out. The team navigated the labyrinth of the stronghold with caution, aware that traps or guards might still lurk. As they walked, Mira stayed close to Aiden, her voice low. We need to debrief as soon as we get back. There's a lot we need to unpack here, especially whatever it is he's started. Aiden agreed, his mind heavy with the weight of their uncertain future. Yes, and we need to figure out if what he said was just to unsettle us or if it's really something we should prepare for. As they reached the exit of the stronghold, the daylight seemed blinding after the darkness of the sanctum. The team shielded their eyes, the outside world now a stark contrast to the grim shadows they had faced inside. Once outside, Aiden took a deep breath, looking back at the stronghold. This isn't the end, team. But today, we've achieved something significant. We'll regroup, reassess, and be ready for whatever comes next. The team nodded, their faces set with determination and fatigue. As they made their way back to their base, the creator in tow, they knew that the coming days would bring new challenges. But for now, they had a victory to claim, and Aiden was proud of the resilience and courage his team had shown. The dimly lit briefing room was thick with anticipation as Aiden addressed his weary but resolute team. They gathered around, their faces marked by battles fought and won, ready to hear what their leader had to say. Aiden paused, looking each team member in the eye. We've achieved a lot, he began. But the creator's last words and the chaos unleashed can't be ignored. We have a lingering threat that could be worse than anything we've faced. Mira, ever the analyst, chimed in. The data supports that, Aiden. The disturbances aren't settling. If anything, they're getting more pronounced. Aiden nodded solemnly. I've been thinking about this. The looping ability, it's been a part of this from the start. My connection to the loops might be fueling the instability. Sir Cedric leaned forward, his voice tinged with concern. You're talking about your ability to reset, to change outcomes. It saved us countless times. What are you saying? There's only one way to ensure we put an end to this for good, Aiden said, his voice steady but heavy with the weight of his decision. I need to sacrifice my looping ability. The room fell silent, the gravity of his words hanging in the air like a dense fog. Lyriel was the first to break the silence. Aiden, think about what you're saying. This ability is not just a tool. It's a part of who you are. Once it's gone, I know, Aiden interrupted gently. Once it's gone, it's gone. But if my ability is what's fueling these disturbances, then continuing to hold on to it is too great a risk. Not just for me, but for the world. Balin grumbled, his usual bluntness softened by the gravity of the discussion. There's got to be another way. We can find it. Aiden shook his head. We've looked. We've all looked. There's no other sure way to ensure that what the creator started ends here. I've made my decision. Mira, her face a mask of professional calm, asked practically, what would this entail? How do you even go about giving up something like that? I've been working with Balin on a device, Aiden explained. It can extract and then dissipate the energy safely, or so we hope. It's based on the same principles we used to disrupt the loops initially. Sir Cedric frowned, his protective instincts kicking in. And what about you, Aiden? What does it do to you? The truth is, I don't know, Aiden admitted. It might hurt a lot, or it might not. The bigger question is the aftermath. How I'll be, what I'll remember. But no matter what happens, it's worth it if it means no more threats from the loops. Lyriel placed her hand gently on Aiden's arm. If you're set on this, we're with you. But we're double-checking every calculation, every line of code. You're not doing this unless we're as sure as we can be. Balin nodded, adding a rough warmth to his voice. And I'll be tweaking that device until I'm sick of looking at it. It's going to work. Aiden looked around at his team, each face reflecting a mix of worry and admiration. Thank you. Let's prepare. If all goes well, we do this at dawn. In the pre-dawn silence, Aiden and his team were gathered in the makeshift lab where Balin and Mira were making final adjustments to the device that was designed to extract Aiden's looping ability. The atmosphere was tense, each member of the team aware of the gravity and potential consequences of what was about to happen. Aiden, clad in a simple, utilitarian outfit suitable for the procedure, watched closely as Balin fiddled with the device's settings. How are we looking, Balin? Is it ready? Balin wiped his brow and nodded, though his expression remained serious. As ready as it'll ever be, Aiden. I've triple-checked everything. The energy siphon is stable, and the dissipators are aligned. It should be smooth, theoretically. Mira, who had been running simulations on her laptop, chimed in. The energy patterns are unpredictable, but we've accounted for every variable we can measure. The rest is up to how the system reacts once we initiate the sequence. Lyriel, looking over the device with a mixture of curiosity and concern, asked, and what about safeguards? If something goes wrong, do we have a way to shut it down quickly? Yes, Mira replied, pointing to several large switches on the side of the device. These are manual overrides. Any sign of trouble, and we can cut the power instantly. But we shouldn't need to use them if all goes as planned. Sir Cedric, who had been quietly observing the preparations, stepped forward. Aiden, are you sure about this? Once we start, there's no going back. Aiden met his gaze with a steady resolve. I'm sure, Cedric. It's the only way to ensure we put an end to the chaos. I have to do this. As the team moved into position, Balin gave Aiden a rugged pat on the shoulder. All right, Aiden, let's get you hooked up. Just sit here and try to relax. Easier said than done. I know. Aiden took a seat in the chair that was part of the device setup, the cold metal of the armrests a stark contrast to the warmth of his palms. As Balin began attaching sensors and energy conduits to him, Aiden looked around at his team. Lyriel approached, her voice soft. You're doing the right thing, Aiden. We all believe in you. Mira finished her last checks and nodded to Balin. We're green across the board. Ready to initiate on your command. Aiden. Taking a deep breath, Aiden nodded. Do it. Start the sequence. Balin pressed a button on the device's central panel, and a low hum filled the room as the machine came to life. Lights on the device flickered as it began to draw energy, visible currents of light traveling from Aiden into the core of the machine. Everything's stable, Mira reported, her eyes fixed on her laptop screen. Energy levels are within expected parameters. As the process intensified, Aiden began to feel a deep, pulling sensation, as if something was being drawn out from the very core of his being. He clenched his teeth, focusing on maintaining control. Stay with us, Aiden, Sir Cedric said, his voice firm. You can do this. The energy extraction reached its peak, and Aiden let out a low groan as he felt a final surge. Then, as quickly as it had started, the sensation ceased. The machine powered down, and the room fell silent. Balin was the first to speak. It's done. The loop energy is completely dissipated. Aiden, feeling suddenly empty yet oddly at peace, slowly stood up. Did it work? Mira, checking her data one last time, smiled. It worked, Aiden. It's over. The team collectively exhaled, relief washing over them. They had faced many challenges together, but this was perhaps their most profound victory. We did it, Aiden said, a weary smile spreading across his face. Thanks to all of you. Now, let's focus on rebuilding what was lost and moving forward. The room was quiet, the hum of the deactivated device the only sound echoing off the walls. Aiden, feeling weaker yet somehow unburdened, steadied himself against the chair, looking around at his team, each member displaying a mixture of relief and concern. It's done then? Aiden asked, his voice softer than usual, the toll of the procedure evident. Yes, Mira confirmed, closing her laptop with a soft click. The looping ability, it's completely gone. The readings are flat. You've done it, Aiden. Balin, packing away his tools, added gruffly, not just done it, you've bloody sacrificed it all, mate. We owe you big time. Aiden managed a tired smile. We did this together. Now, it's really over, isn't it? Sir Cedric, who had been silently watching over the procedure, stepped forward. It's over, Aiden. And you're still here. That's what matters. You took a risk, a huge one, but it paid off. Lyriel approached, her eyes glistening slightly. You've given us all a chance to fight another day, Aiden. Without the loops being a threat, Aiden looked around at his team, feeling a profound sense of gratitude. I couldn't have done this without you all. This team, what we've achieved, it's more than I ever hoped. Mira nodded, her demeanor professional but her voice warm. We need to monitor the situation, ensure that there are no residual effects from the device or from what you were able to do. Of course, Aiden agreed. And we'll need to stay vigilant. Just because the loops are gone doesn't mean our work is done. There are still people out there who can benefit from our help. Balin chuckled, breaking the solemn mood slightly. Sounds like you're not planning on taking a vacation anytime soon. Aiden laughed, the sound a bit raspy. Maybe someday, but not yet. There's too much to do. Sir Cedric clapped Aiden on the back. Well, when you're ready for that vacation, first round's on me. For now, let's focus on rebuilding and helping where we can. The team agreed, and as they began to pack up the equipment, Lyriel stayed behind, her expression thoughtful. Aiden, are you really okay with how things turned out? With the sacrifice? Looking at the window at the breaking dawn, Aiden reflected on her question. I am. It was worth it. This power, it was too much for one person to hold. I feel free, in a way I haven't felt in a long time. Lyriel nodded, understanding his sentiment. You've given us all a new beginning, Aiden. It's a brave new world out there, thanks to you. As the team finished their work and prepared to leave the lab, Aiden felt a new sense of purpose solidify within him. He had made the ultimate sacrifice, but in doing so, he had secured a future not just for himself but for countless others. Let's get to work, Aiden said with renewed energy, leading his team out of the lab and into the early morning light, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead with the confidence of someone who had faced the abyss and emerged victorious. The sun crested over the horizon, bathing the command center in warm light. Aiden and his team were gathered around the large conference table, the mood markedly lighter than it had been for a long time. Aiden stood, looking out the window before addressing the group. It's been a full day since the loop ceased. All our monitors, all our reports from across Elisareth, they all show the same thing. Stability. No anomalies, no distortions. We're truly free from the loops. Mira, her laptop opened with live data feeds and analysis reports, confirmed the temporal measurements haven't fluctuated at all since the extraction. It's like a heavy cloud has lifted. What happens now is new, untouched by any loops. Lyriel, who had been liaising with various regional leaders, added her insights. People are cautious but optimistic. They're starting to plan for the future, one they now believe will remain as they shape it. Sir Cedric, always focused on the practical aspects, leaned forward. This freedom, it's a new kind of challenge. How we manage this transition could set the tone for generations. Our role in security and stability is more crucial than ever. Balin, typically blunt, cut in. It's going to be a massive shift. No more chasing our tails, guessing if tomorrow will reset what we do today. It's all forward from here. Aiden nodded thoughtfully. Our first step must be reaching out to those most affected by the loops. Some areas were hit harder than others, and we need to ensure they have what they need to recover. Mira highlighted a section on her screen. The Northern Territories are a priority. They suffered frequent resets, and their infrastructure is fragile. We need a sustained effort there. Lyriel chimed in, her tone serious. I've already set up preliminary communications with the leaders there. They're eager for assurance that the loops are indeed gone. We need to confirm that. Beyond a doubt, Aiden stated firmly. We've been given a unique opportunity to rebuild trust. Let's make sure everyone knows the loops are history. Sir Cedric suggested a series of town hall meetings might help. Show our faces, answer questions, let them see the people ensuring their safety. Balin was already thinking logistics. I'll get the supplies moving. Medical aid, food, building materials, whatever they need. It's time to show what we can do without the shadow of loops over us. Aiden approved the initiative. Excellent. Let's coordinate transport and protection. Mira, keep monitoring for any fluctuations. Balin, start organizing the relief efforts. Lyriel, continue your communications and set up those meetings. Cedric, you and your team will provide security and help with logistics on the ground. The team nodded, each member clear on their roles. As they prepared to disperse to their tasks, Aiden added, this is more than just recovery. It's our chance to lay down the foundations of a new era. Mira looked up, a slight smile on her face. A new era indeed. Aiden, let's make it a bright one. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows of the command center, illuminating the maps and digital displays that covered the large table where Aiden's team was deep in discussion. All right, let's focus on the Northern Territories. Aiden began, pointing to the marked areas on the map. They've borne the brunt of the loop disturbances. We need a solid plan to stabilize and support them. Mira nodded, her laptop displaying logistics data. I've arranged for the first convoy of supplies to leave at dawn. It includes food, medical supplies, and building materials. But this is just the beginning. Sustaining support will be key. Lyriel added, I've been in touch with the local leaders there. They're desperate for assurance that the loops are truly over. They want to rebuild, but they're scared to invest their efforts without knowing if it'll last. Aiden considered this. We need to communicate clearly and effectively. Cedric, I'm thinking you could lead a delegation. Meet with the leaders. Show them we're invested in their stability. Sir Cedric, always ready for action, agreed immediately. I'll assemble a team. We'll set out as soon as the first convoy does. It'll be good to reassure them in person. Balin, checking his inventory lists, chimed in. I'm also setting up mobile workshops. They can move from town to town, helping with repairs and teaching locals basic maintenance skills. Help them help themselves. You know, that's an excellent initiative. Balin, Aiden approved. Empowering the locals is exactly what we need. What about security arrangements? Sir Cedric responded, I've coordinated with local militia leaders. We'll bolster their ranks with some of our own for a while, train them up. Ensure they can maintain order without needing our constant presence. Mira, always thinking several steps ahead, raised another point. We should also consider the psychological impact. The loops weren't just physically destructive. Many people are traumatized, uncertain. We might want to bring in some counselors or set up community support groups. Lyriel nodded vigorously. Absolutely. Healing the mind is just as important as rebuilding houses. I'll coordinate with our healthcare teams and get some specialists on board. Aiden summarized their strategy. Good. So, we have supply convoys, security and training enhancements, infrastructure rebuilds, and psychological support all rolling out. This is going to be a comprehensive effort. Let's not overlook anything that can make a difference. As they discussed finer details, the room buzzed with a new kind of energy, hopeful, determined. Each member of the team was fully engaged, suggesting improvements, tweaking plans. Finally, Aiden leaned back, scanning the faces of his dedicated team. This is how we turn a new leaf for Elisareth. We've been given a chance to reshape our world, and we're going to make the most of it. Let's be thorough and let's be compassionate. Our actions now will set the tone for the future. Mira closed her laptop with a decisive snap. Then let's get to it. The sooner we start, the sooner we see results. Everyone nodded, their expressions a mix of resolve and anticipation. They began to pack up, ready to put their plans into action. The early morning air was crisp as Aiden and his team prepared to leave the command center. Their vehicles were loaded, and everyone was ready for the mission ahead. As they gathered for a final briefing, the sense of a new beginning was palpable. Aiden looked around at his team, each member equipped and alert. Today marks a new chapter for Elisareth. We faced unprecedented challenges and come through stronger. Now, we have the chance to rebuild not just structures, but lives. Mira, checking her digital planner, nodded. The first convoy will reach the Northern Territories by noon. We'll establish a base and start distributing the supplies immediately. Sir Cedric, adjusting his armor, added, my team is ready. We'll ensure the convoys are secure and assist the local militias. It's about more than just protection. It's about partnership. Lyriel, carrying several scrolls and digital tablets, spoke up. I've organized meetings with community leaders and support groups. We're not just bringing them supplies, we're bringing them hope. Balin, overseeing the loading of the last of the equipment, grinned. And I've got the mobile workshops ready to roll. We're going to teach them how to maintain everything we install, make sure it lasts. Aiden smiled, appreciating his team's enthusiasm and commitment. Everyone knows their role. Remember, we're not just rebuilding homes, we're helping rebuild lives. Listen to the people, learn from them. Their insights will guide our efforts. As the team nodded in agreement, Aiden continued, this is about sustainable recovery. Everything we do should empower the communities to take over eventually. We're setting foundations, not dependencies. Mira stepped forward. I've set up a communications network that will keep us all connected. We'll be able to share updates in real time and adjust our plans as needed. Sir Cedric chimed in, and we'll conduct regular patrols, not just for security, but to stay engaged with the communities. We need to be seen as allies, not overseers. Lyriel added, and my team will start support group sessions by the end of the week. The psychological recovery is as crucial as the physical. Balin, closing the back of the truck, called out, let's not forget, we're setting an example. How we handle this can set the tone for future efforts across the world. Aiden nodded, feeling a mix of pride and responsibility. Absolutely, Balin. Let's be the example of what recovery should look like. As the sun rose higher, bathing the landscape in light, the team boarded their vehicles. Aiden took one last look at the command center before joining Mira in the lead vehicle. Mira started the engine but paused to look at Aiden. You've led us here, Aiden, through loops, chaos, and now to recovery. How do you feel? Aiden considered her question, watching the convoy begin its journey. Hopeful, he finally said. For the first time in a long while, truly hopeful. With a nod, Mira drove forward, leading the convoy toward the Northern Territories. The road ahead was long, and the work to be done was immense, but Aiden knew they were ready. As they drove away from the command center, the rising sun seemed to promise a brighter future, a testament to their resilience and determination to forge a better world. The soft rustle of leaves in the gentle morning breeze complemented the solemn gathering in the heart of Elisareth's newly dedicated park. A diverse crowd had assembled, representing every race and community within the realm, all drawn together to honor a singular figure, Aiden. Sir Cedric stood before a magnificent monument, its sleek lines reaching towards the sky, symbolizing hope and resilience. He cleared his throat, addressing the assembly with a strong, clear voice. Today, we gather not just to mourn, but to celebrate the life and sacrifice of Aiden, who stood as a pillar of courage and unity for all of us. His vision and bravery have gifted us a future we now hold in our hands. Lyriel stepped up beside Sir Cedric, her presence commanding yet serene. Aiden taught us the power of sacrifice and the strength that comes from choosing the greater good over personal gain. This monument behind me is a testament to his legacy, a reminder to us all of the path of peace and cooperation he paved. A dwarven leader, his voice resonant and deep, joined in. In stone and in spirit, this monument stands firm, much like Aiden himself. He united us, different peoples with different dreams, into a single force that could overcome darkness and despair. The crowd listened, many nodding in agreement, their faces a mosaic of solemnity and respect. An elven representative, graceful and eloquent, added her voice to the chorus of accolades. Today, we commit to not only remember Aiden but to emulate his virtues. Let this park, this monument, be a place of reflection and resolve, where we remind ourselves of the peace and unity he fought so hard to achieve. As each leader spoke, their words wove a tapestry of gratitude and commitment, filling the space with a collective resolve. Sir Cedric then invited the crowd to a moment of silence. As the silence enveloped the park, the soft sounds of nature seemed to echo the peace Aiden had envisioned. After a moment, Sir Cedric raised his voice once more. As we stand here, let us each pledge to continue Aiden's work, to build and protect the world he believed could exist. Let his spirit guide us as we make decisions for our future and the future of our children. Mira, standing off to the side, whispered to Balin. He would have been proud, wouldn't he? Balin, typically gruff, nodded, his voice uncharacteristically soft. Yeah, he would. And he'd tell us to get on with it, not to waste time standing around. As the ceremony concluded, the crowd began to disperse, but many lingered, drawn to the monument. They touched its base, some leaving flowers, others simply standing in quiet reflection. Lyriel, joining Mira and Balin, summed up the sentiment. He left us a great responsibility. It's up to us now to uphold his legacy. Mira responded, determined, and uphold it we will, starting with ensuring this peace lasts and that the sacrifices made were not in vain. The afternoon was warm and the sun filtered through the windows of the conference room, where leaders and experts from various parts of Elisareth were gathered. They sat around a large circular table, each with a digital tablet or papers in front of them, ready to discuss the substantive plans for rebuilding their world. Mira initiated the session with a clear focus. Let's outline the concrete steps we need to take to stabilize the regions most affected by the loops. It's crucial we distribute resources equitably and support the most vulnerable communities first. A human delegate, representing one of the northern territories, shared his concerns. Our main issue is access to clean water and medical facilities. Many of our wells were contaminated repeatedly due to the loops, and our clinics are overwhelmed. An elf expert in sustainable development responded, we can deploy mobile purification units initially and start planning for new, sustainable water infrastructures. For healthcare, we should consider temporary field hospitals while rebuilding the permanent facilities. Lyriel, always attuned to the cultural aspects, suggested education must also be a priority. Not just in schools, but community education about health, technology, and civic engagement to empower our citizens. Sir Cedric, focusing on security and stability, added, we'll need to ensure these efforts are well protected. I propose a rotating schedule of peacekeepers across the territories. It's not just about deterring threats, but also about building trust with the local populations. Balin, who had been quiet, spoke up about communication infrastructure. Rebuilding physical roads is good, but don't forget the info highways. We need a robust communication network so that no community feels isolated or left out of the loop. No pun intended. The dwarf representative, known for his engineering expertise, nodded in agreement. I can assist with that. Dwarven engineers are ready to lay down new communication lines and help construct durable roads. We'll use materials that are both sturdy and environmentally friendly. Mira, synthesizing the discussion, noted, it sounds like we need a multi-tiered approach. Immediate humanitarian aid, infrastructure rebuilding, long-term educational programs, and a solid security presence. Plus, enhancing communication networks throughout. An elven sociologist then raised a crucial point. We must also consider the psychological impact on our citizens. Continuous loops have left deep scars. Mental health support should be integrated into all our health initiatives. Sir Cedric agreed, absolutely. Let's set up counseling centers in every community center we build. Physical and mental recovery go hand in hand. As the meeting drew to a close, each leader agreed to take the discussion back to their communities for further input and to return with a committed workforce ready to implement the agreed-upon initiatives. Lyriel summarized the sentiment of the meeting. Aiden showed us what can be accomplished when we unite for a common cause. Let's carry that spirit forward. The group dispersed with a sense of purpose, energized by the task ahead. As they left the room, Mira turned to Balin, saying, we've got a lot of work ahead, but for the first time, it feels like we're truly rebuilding, not just patching up. Balin chuckled. That's right. Let's get to it, then. No rest for the dedicated. The signing ceremony for the unified plan of rebuilding was held in the Grand Hall of the Central Council building, with representatives from all the races and regions of Elisareth in attendance. The large, ornate room buzzed with the voices of those committed to forging a new path forward. Sir Cedric, standing at the head of the room near the declaration, began the ceremony with a rousing speech. Today, as we sign this pact, we affirm our commitment not only to rebuild but to reinvent our society. Inspired by Aiden's legacy, we will work together to ensure that our future is bright and that no part of Elisareth is left behind in our new era. Mira then took the podium, outlining the specifics of the agreement. This pact outlines our strategies for equitable resource distribution, mutual defense, sustainable development, and inclusive governance. Each leader here commits to these principles, ensuring that our rebuilding efforts are comprehensive and just. One by one, the leaders came forward to sign the document, each making a brief statement of commitment. The dwarf representative, his voice resonant in the hall, declared, we dwarves commit our strength and skill to this cause. Together, we build more than buildings, we build a future. An elf ambassador, graceful and poised, added, in unity with our fellow races, we elves pledge our wisdom and our dedication to cultivating a world that values peace and natural harmony. A human mayor from one of the northern territories spoke of resilience. Our communities have endured great trials. Today, we turn the page, ready to face new challenges with unwavering courage and cooperation. As the last signature was added, Lyriel addressed the assembly, her voice clear and inspiring. Let this pact be a testament to what we can achieve together. Let's move forward with open hearts and a shared vision, honoring those who have sacrificed for our freedom and future. Balin, not one for speeches, whispered to Mira as they watched. I never thought I'd see the day when all these folks would agree on anything. Aiden really started something, didn't he? Mira nodded, her eyes reflecting the historical significance of the moment. He did, and now it's up to us to keep that momentum going. We're part of something big here, Balin. After the ceremony, the crowd moved outside to the council building steps, where they were greeted by cheers from the public gathered to witness the event. The leaders, now signatories of the pact, stood together, their unity a powerful symbol to all of Elisareth. Sir Cedric, joining Mira and Balin, looked out over the crowd. We've got our work cut out for us, but look at them, they believe in this. They believe in us. Mira, feeling the weight of responsibility, agreed. They do, and we won't let them down. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it. As the crowd began to disperse, the leaders returned inside to discuss the immediate next steps. There was much to do, from logistical planning to field implementations, but the foundation was set. Elisareth was on its way to not just recovering, but thriving, thanks to the collective will and unified efforts of its people. Under the shade of an ancient oak in the newly named Aiden's Park, Mira, Sir Cedric, Lyriel, and Balin gathered. The park was quiet, a gentle breeze rustling the leaves, creating a serene atmosphere for remembrance. Mira leaned against the tree, looking at the small plaque that read, "In memory of Aiden, who envisioned a world united and free." She sighed softly. It's hard to believe it's already been a year. I keep thinking about all the things Aiden did, all he wanted to do. It feels like he's still guiding us. Sir Cedric, standing with his arms crossed, nodded solemnly. I feel it too. Every decision I make, I find myself wondering what Aiden would have thought. He had a way of seeing the best path through the thorniest problem. Lyriel, sitting on the grass, plucked a blade and twirled it between her fingers. His legacy is more than just the peace we enjoy or the monuments we built. It's in the way he changed us, made us believe in something bigger than ourselves. Balin, typically reserved, added gruffly, he did that. Made us think about what it means to lead, to sacrifice. The world's a better place because of him, but damn if I don't miss the stubborn fool. Mira chuckled lightly, a sad smile crossing her lips. I miss him too. All those late-night strategy sessions. His endless optimism even when things looked impossible. Sir Cedric looked around at the peaceful setting. This park is a fitting tribute, a place of calm and reflection, right in the heart of the city he loved and fought for. Lyriel nodded. He taught us about strength, about sacrifice, but most importantly, about hope. He believed so deeply in the goodness of people, in their ability to come together and overcome. Balin stood up, brushing off his trousers. He did, and look at what's happened since. The races are working together. There's real dialogue happening, not just treaties and truces. We're actually solving problems together, not just sticking band-aids on them. Mira took a deep breath, absorbing the tranquility of the park. We should keep this up. This meeting? Make it a tradition, every year, right here, to remember him and to remind ourselves of the path he set us on. Sir Cedric agreed. I think that's what he would have wanted. Not just to remember him, but to renew our commitment to the work. To ensure his vision continues to guide us. Lyriel smiled, looking up at the oak's expansive branches. Then it settled. Every year, we come here. We remember, we reflect, and we plan. For Aiden, and for the future he believed we could build. The meeting continued as the group sat around a rustic wooden table near the center of Aiden's park. Each member bringing forward plans and updates on the ongoing efforts to rebuild and enhance their world according to Aiden's vision. Mira opened her tablet, displaying a series of charts and graphs. Since we last met, there's been substantial progress in the sectors most affected by the upheavals. Look at these education initiatives. Literacy rates are climbing, and enrollment numbers are higher than ever. Sir Cedric, looking over the data, nodded approvingly. That's fantastic. Mira, education is the cornerstone of a free society. What about security and stability? Mira switched to another chart. There have been fewer incidents of unrest. Our efforts to integrate security forces from various communities are paying off. People feel represented and, more importantly, protected. Lyriel, always focused on the cultural aspects, added, and let's not forget about the cultural exchanges we've initiated. Festivals, art exhibits, and joint historical projects are weaving a rich tapestry of shared heritage. Aiden always believed in the power of culture to unite people. Balin, who had been quietly listening, chimed in with his update. Infrastructure's been a big win too. We've completed the bridge linking the northern territories to the central trade routes. It's more than just a bridge. It's a lifeline, boosting local economies and fostering trade. Mira smiled, pleased with the reports. This is all great progress. Aiden would have been proud to see us turning his dreams into reality. But we need to maintain momentum. What are the challenges we're facing? Sir Cedric leaned forward, his expression turning serious. Resource allocation is still an issue. While we've made great strides, there are areas, especially in the outer regions, that feel left behind. We need to ensure our efforts are as inclusive as possible. Lyriel nodded in agreement. Engagement is key, Perhaps we can set up more town hall meetings, get more feedback directly from the citizens. We need to hear their voices, understand their needs. Balin grunted. I'll take a team and go on a tour. We'll do some ground level assessment. Sometimes you gotta see the problems firsthand to fix them. Mira noted all the suggestions, her fingers flying over the tablet. I'll coordinate with each of you on these projects. Let's make sure no one feels neglected. As they discussed the logistics and planned their next steps, the commitment to Aiden's legacy was evident in their determination and thoughtful approach. Finally, Sir Cedric summed up their meeting. We're not just rebuilding infrastructure here. We're building a community, a society that lives up to Aiden's ideals. Let's keep pushing, keep striving. We've come a long way, but the journey continues. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over Aiden's park, Mira, Sir Cedric, Lyriel, and Balin lingered by the memorial bench, each reflecting on the productive discussions of the day and the road ahead. Mira, closing her tablet, looked around at her colleagues. This annual meeting, it's more than just a tradition. It's a commitment. We are the keepers of Aiden's legacy, and each year, we see it grow stronger through our actions. Sir Cedric nodded, his eyes thoughtful as he gazed at the setting sun. It's a reminder of why we started this journey. Aiden set us on this path, but it's up to us to continue. Every year, we see the impact of our work, and it's profoundly gratifying. Lyriel, always moved by the unity of the group, added softly, it's about the connections we've built, too. Look at us, different backgrounds, different skills, yet here we are, united in purpose and friendship. Balin, who usually kept his emotions in check, shared a rare sentiment. I used to think it was all about getting the job done, fixing things up, and moving on. But it's more than that. It's about building something lasting, not just buildings and roads, but peace, trust, and hope. Mira smiled warmly at the group. Each year, we come here and reflect on what we've achieved and what still needs to be done. It keeps us honest, keeps us driven. I think Aiden would have wanted that. Sir Cedric stood up, stretching his legs. Well, let's not forget, the world doesn't stop. We've got new challenges every day, new opportunities to make a difference. Aiden taught us that the only way to honor his memory is to never stand still. Lyriel picked up her tablet, her fingers poised above the screen. I'm already thinking about our next projects. There are ideas brewing that could use Aiden's touch. What do you say we tackle them with his spirit in mind? Balin grinned, clapping his hands together. That's the spirit. Lyriel, let's get back to work then. There are bridges to build and roads to mend. And I'm not just talking about the literal ones. As they prepared to leave, Mira turned back to look at the bench one last time. Every year, we'll come back here. We'll remember what Aiden did for us and for Elisareth, and we'll remind ourselves of the work yet to be done. Sir Cedric placed his hand on her shoulder. And every year, we'll see this park not just as a place of memory, but as a place of renewal and resolve. We are Aiden's legacy. Let's carry it forward with pride. The Grand Council Chamber, with its high ceilings and walls adorned with frescoes depicting the history of Elisareth, buzzed with the voices of leaders from every race and region. They had gathered around a vast circular table designed to symbolize unity and equality. Today marked the inaugural meeting of the newly formed Council of Races, a body established to govern collectively and maintain peace throughout the lands. Sir Cedric, having assumed the role of the council's temporary chair, stood to address the assembly. His voice echoed in the chamber, commanding attention. Esteemed leaders, today we stand at the threshold of a new era. This council, representing every corner of Elisareth, is a beacon of our collective commitment to peace and prosperity. We are here to ensure that all voices are heard and that our decisions reflect the diverse will of our people. An elf dignitary, her attire as elegant as her speech, took the floor next. Thank you, Sir Cedric. It is indeed a historic day. This council must act as the harmonious heart of Elisareth, pumping life and vitality into every part of our world. We are many, but here, we speak as one. A dwarf leader, his beard braided with ceremonial medals, added, and let's be clear about our responsibilities. This isn't just about making peace last. It's about making our lands thrive. Infrastructure, trade, security. These need to be our bread and butter. Mira, now serving as the council's executive secretary, detailed the procedural framework. To facilitate our governance, we've established committees focusing on different areas of administration. Each committee will be chaired by a council member, rotating annually to ensure all communities lead and learn. A human representative, young and fiercely intelligent, chimed in. Transparency will be our guiding principle. All our meetings, decisions, and the rationales behind them will be documented and made available to the public. We serve the people, and they deserve to know how. Lyriel, looking every bit the diplomat she was, spoke of broader implications. While we manage the practicalities of governance, let us not forget the cultural and social fabric that binds us. Initiatives that foster intercultural respect and understanding should be integral to our agenda. Sir Cedric nodded, appreciating the depth and breadth of the discussion. Well said, everyone. Let's formalize this by adopting our first resolution. a declaration of our commitment to collaborative governance and mutual respect among all races and regions of Elisareth. One by one, the council members voiced their approval. An orc chieftain, known for his pragmatic yet insightful viewpoints, concluded, "This council is more than just a new layer of governance. It's a promise of a united Elisareth where every citizen, no matter their origin, can look forward to a future of peace and possibility." The resolution was met with unanimous agreement, and as Sir Cedric hammered the gavel, the sound seemed to seal their shared commitment. After a brief recess, the members of the new Council of Races reconvened in the Grand Council chamber, the afternoon light casting long shadows across the ornate floor. The room buzzed with a focused energy as the leaders prepared to tackle the first major agenda items: economic revitalization and security. Mira, her fingers poised above her tablet, addressed the council. "Let's turn our attention to one of the most pressing issues: restoring and enhancing our trade routes. These are vital arteries for our economies and crucial for our collective prosperity." A dwarf representative, his voice resonant in the chamber, spoke up. "I propose we start with the Great Northern Route. It has suffered from neglect and frequent disruptions. A fully operational trade route there would not only boost local economies but also strengthen connections between the northern and central regions." An elf leader, noted for her expertise in economic affairs, agreed. "A joint task force could oversee the project. We should include members from each affected region to ensure all interests are fairly represented. Additionally, employing local workers would help stimulate the struggling local economies." Sir Cedric, nodding, added, "Security along these routes is also paramount. We cannot allow banditry or political disputes to undermine these efforts. I suggest integrating local watch groups with our central peacekeeping forces to provide security." The human representative, a young strategist from the Southern Territories, raised another point. "While we focus on the physical routes, we shouldn't overlook the potential of digital infrastructure. Enhancing our communication networks will complement the physical trade routes, making them more efficient and secure." Mira made a note of the suggestions. "Excellent points all around. I'll draft a preliminary plan for the task force and circulate it for feedback by the end of the week." Lyriel, always concerned with the social impact, chimed in. "Let's also ensure that these projects are environmentally sustainable. Our rebuilding efforts must consider the long-term health of our lands." The orc leader, known for his pragmatic approach, suggested, "And let's set up a monitoring system to track the progress and impact of these projects. It will help us make data-driven adjustments and ensure transparency." The discussion then shifted towards resource management, a critical issue given the varying degrees of natural wealth across the regions. The elf leader proposed, "To manage our natural resources responsibly, I suggest establishing a resource allocation board. It would include representatives from all regions and oversee the distribution and sustainable use of resources." The dwarf chieftain supported the idea. That board could also explore new mining technologies that reduce environmental impact. "We have techniques that could be shared and adapted." Sir Cedric summarized the sentiment of the council. "These inaugural resolutions set the tone for our governance: collaborative, inclusive, and forward-thinking. Let's vote to formalize these initiatives and move forward with purpose." As each leader voiced their approval, the resolution passed unanimously. The council's first session marked a significant step towards not just rebuilding, but reshaping the future of Elisareth. Mira concluded the meeting with a sense of accomplishment. "Thank you, everyone. Your commitment and insight today promise a bright future for our world. Let's continue this work with the same spirit of unity and dedication." As the first day of the council meeting drew to a close, the leaders of Elisareth's races gathered around the grand table once more, reflecting on the day's achievements and discussing the steps ahead. Sir Cedric stood, addressing the council with a sense of pride and anticipation. "Today, we've laid down the groundwork for what I believe will be a transformative era for our lands. Our resolutions on trade, security, and resource management are just the beginning. We must now look forward to implementing these plans effectively." Lyriel, her eyes gleaming with the excitement of new possibilities, responded, "Our work today was inspiring. As we move forward, I propose we establish a cultural exchange program. Understanding each other's heritage and values will strengthen the bonds we've started to build here." An orc chieftain, leaning forward, his voice booming with enthusiasm, added, "And let's not forget about the young ones. We need to invest in education, not just traditional learning, but in teaching our children about governance, diplomacy, and cooperation. They're the future leaders of Elisareth." Mira, always organized and forward-thinking, tapped on her tablet, bringing up a digital calendar. "I will coordinate with each of you to set up a timeline for these initiatives. We need regular updates and checkpoints to ensure we're on track and adaptable to changing circumstances." The dwarf representative, his voice gruff but thoughtful, suggested, "We should also consider hosting a yearly summit. A place where we can come together to review our progress, celebrate our successes, and learn from our setbacks." The human strategist, young and sharply intelligent, nodded in agreement. "A summit is a great idea. It could also serve as an innovation hub, where we can showcase new technologies and strategies that make our governance more effective and our cities smarter." Sir Cedric, pleased with the proactive suggestions, replied, "These are excellent ideas. Let's take them one step further. Alongside the summit, we could launch a council newsletter or a portal where citizens can obtain information, offer feedback, and even participate in council decision-making processes." Lyriel smiled, adding, "Transparency and communication will be key to maintaining the trust and enthusiasm of our people. This newsletter or portal could really help bridge the gap between the council and the citizens." Balin, typically more focused on action than words, chimed in. "While we're at it, let's make sure we're also focusing on our defense capabilities. Peace is hard won, and we need to be prepared to protect it." The elf leader, her voice calm and reassuring, concluded the session. "Today marks a new chapter in the history of Elisareth. We are moving from a period of turmoil and uncertainty to one of hope and opportunity. Let us proceed with wisdom, courage, and foresight." As the meeting adjourned, the leaders stood together, a united front ready to face the challenges and opportunities ahead. Their conversations lingered in the air, filled with plans and optimism. In the secluded tranquility of the elf forests, where light filtered through ancient trees and danced on the quietly babbling brook, a small clearing known as Aiden's Rest offered a sanctuary of peace. Here, a statue of Aiden looked out over the lands he had helped to free, his gaze serene yet vigilant. Mira, Lyriel, Sir Cedric, and Balin gathered around the statue, each carrying the weight of their memories with Aiden. The air was filled with the gentle sounds of the forest, adding a layer of solemnity to their assembly. Lyriel was the first to speak, her voice blending softly with the rustling leaves. "They say this place is where Aiden's spirit watches over us, a guardian not just in memory but in essence. It's as if his commitment to our world continues, even beyond his presence." Sir Cedric, looking up at the statue, his expression thoughtful, replied, "I've felt it every time I've come here. There's a calm, a sense of order. If spirits do linger, Aiden's would be here, ensuring we remain true to the peace he fought for." Mira, her eyes reflecting the dappled sunlight, added, "This clearing, this statue, they remind us of what he accomplished and what he sacrificed. It's a place of reflection, to measure ourselves against his legacy." Balin, usually the most grounded of the group, couldn't help but feel a deeper connection here. "It's strange, isn't it? A warrior's rest being so peaceful. But then, he was always fighting for peace, wasn't he? Maybe this is his victory." They each took a moment to touch the base of the statue, a tradition said to bring wisdom and courage from Aiden's enduring spirit. Lyriel continued, "Aiden taught us that peace isn't just the absence of war. It's the presence of justice, of equitable opportunity, of the unity that comes from understanding and respect. This place, it embodies that." Sir Cedric, reflecting on their ongoing efforts to maintain the peace, said, "We come here to remember what he stood for, and to find guidance in times of doubt. This statue doesn't just represent Aiden. It represents the ideals he instilled in us all." Mira looked around at the lush greenery, the vibrant life thriving in the forest. "He'd be pleased to see the world now. The conflicts have not resumed, and the alliances hold. We've moved forward, not forgotten." Balin, his voice softer than usual, shared his resolve. "We keep fighting, in our way. We make sure this peace lasts, make sure his sacrifice wasn't in vain. And coming here, it's like checking in with an old friend, making sure we're still on the right path." As they stood there, the setting sun cast long shadows across the clearing, the light lingering on Aiden's statue as if to emphasize his lasting watch over the world. It was a poignant reminder of the hero they had lost and the enduring duty they had inherited. The gentle murmur of the forest surrounded the group as they walked along a moss-lined path away from Aiden's Rest. The tranquility of the setting prompted deeper reflections on the legacy Aiden left behind and the ongoing influence it held over each of them. Mira paused, leaning against a gnarled oak tree, her gaze thoughtful. "Aiden always saw further ahead than any of us. Remember how he planned the alliance treaty? It was like he already saw a peaceful Elisareth, even in the midst of chaos." Lyriel, walking beside her, smiled softly. "He did have that vision, and he made us believe in it too. It wasn't just about ending the conflicts, it was about what came after. He was building a foundation for a future he knew he might never see." Sir Cedric adjusted the strap of his cloak, looking back towards the statue in the distance. "I often think about his words during the last council before everything changed. He said, 'We are not just saving lives, we are saving a future.' That always stuck with me." Balin, usually the most stoic of the group, added his thoughts. "He pushed us hard, didn't he? Always testing our limits, making us reach for what we thought was impossible. Made us leaders without us even noticing." As they continued down the path, Mira shared a personal anecdote. "The night before the final battle, he told me something I'll never forget. He said, 'No matter what happens, keep looking forward. Our actions today will echo in Elisareth's tomorrow.' And here we are, living that tomorrow." The conversation turned as they reached a small clearing overlooking a vibrant valley. Lyriel gestured to the scene below, where new construction melded seamlessly with the ancient landscape. "This valley, it's thriving because we remembered his lessons. Cooperation over conflict, unity over division. Sir Cedric nodded, his voice filled with a mix of pride and nostalgia. He would have been proud to see this. Not just the buildings or the roads, but the communities coming together. Different races, different histories, all working as one. Balin, looking over the valley, said gruffly, "He left us a hefty task, didn't he? Making sure this peace lasts, making sure his sacrifice meant something. But I reckon we're up to it. We have to be." Mira then turned to the group, her expression resolute. "He gave us the blueprint. It's up to us to keep building, to keep striving towards the vision he laid out for us. We owe him that much." The group agreed silently, each lost in their own memories and thoughts of Aiden. They knew their journey was far from over, but they were determined to uphold Aiden's ideals and teachings. As the evening set in, casting a golden glow through the leaves of the elf forest, the group returned to the vicinity of Aiden's rest. They settled on a rustic wooden bench, the air around them filled with the scent of pine and the gentle sound of the brook nearby. Lyriel, looking around at the peaceful scene, spoke first. "Being here, discussing Aiden's vision, it's a reminder of the promise we made to him and to ourselves, to continue building on the foundation he laid." Mira, pulling a small notebook from her bag, added, "He often spoke about the endurance of spirit, about how our deeds define us across time. We've come far, but the journey continues. Each step we take is a step toward fulfilling the vision he believed in so passionately." Sir Cedric, his gaze fixed on the flowing water, reflected on their growth. "We've seen changes, faced challenges, and every time, we've risen because Aiden taught us the value of unity and perseverance. We must keep those lessons alive, not just in our actions, but in how we inspire others." Balin, his voice more subdued than usual, nodded. "It's about the legacy, isn't it? Keeping the torch lit and passing it on. Aiden started something bigger than any of us. It's up to us to see it through, to ensure it doesn't end with us." Mira turned the pages of her notebook, finding a quote she had written down from one of Aiden's speeches. He once said, "Let our legacy be a beacon, not a shadow." It's a powerful reminder that we should lead by example, illuminate the path forward for others to follow. Lyriel, inspired by Myra's words, shared her thoughts. "Our work in cultural exchange and education is part of that. By teaching the next generation about the values Aiden championed, cooperation, respect, and vision, we're ensuring his spirit lives on." Sir Cedric stood, looking toward the statue of Aiden. "Each year, as we meet here, we renew our commitment. But it's the daily decisions, the small acts of courage and collaboration, that truly honor his memory and build the future he envisioned." The group stood together, each feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Mira suggested, "Let's make a pledge, here and now, to meet annually not just to reflect but to set goals, to challenge ourselves to do more, to be more." Balin, usually reserved, agreed wholeheartedly. "I'm in. Aiden gave us a mission. Let's prove we were worthy of his trust, worthy of the time we had with him." Lyriel took a small stone from her pocket and placed it at the base of Aiden's statue, a tradition among her people to signify commitment and remembrance. "This stone is my pledge to continue Aiden's work, to spread his message of peace and unity." Each member followed suit, placing a stone and making their own silent pledge. The stones, simple yet significant, formed a small cairn, symbolizing their collective commitment. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the group left Aiden's rest with a quiet confidence. They were more than friends and colleagues. They were custodians of a legacy that would shape generations. Aiden's ideals, his dreams of a united and peaceful world, were in their hands. They walked back through the forest, the echoes of their footsteps a testament to their determination and unity, carrying forward the legacy of a hero who had taught them the true meaning of leadership and sacrifice.